get the answer to that email that you, I don't know, is that to me or him? I don't know what.
Winter Springs Regular City Commission meeting of Monday, January 9th, 2026. Christian, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Kevin McCann.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Cade Resnick.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Diaz.
Present.
Commissioner Victoria Bruce.
Present.
Commissioner Sarah Baker.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Caruso.
Here.
City Manager Kevin Sweet.
Present.
City Attorney Anthony A. Garnies.
Here. Great. And so why don't we start with invocation and our dear friend Bob Melhorn, to be followed by the pledge.
Good evening, everyone. Let's pray. Living Spirit, be present among us this evening. Help us to be grateful people for all that's come from your hand. Help us to be courageous people for the challenges that confront us. Help us to be wise people as we contemplate important decisions. Many issues will rise tonight, and as we start to think about a different shape to our city charter and government, we ask that you would keep us mindful, especially of the neediest among us. We ask your blessing upon our mayor, our city commissioners, our city manager, our city attorney, our city clerk, all who work for this fair city. I ask your blessing upon every man and woman in this room, and I would pray your blessing for all who call Winter Springs their home. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good.
All right. Do we have agenda changes at this time, commissioners? Or is there, under consent, is there something specifically you would like me to stop on?
Just two things from me. Ready?
Yep.
All right, so one of those things is for the situation with a lot split. It's come to my attention that there might be a concern, so I'm going to leave it with all of my peers here. One of the people involved in the property used to be an employee of mine, has not been an employee for over a year, and to me, that this situation does not have a bearing to recuse myself, yet if my peers would prefer me to recuse myself from this vote, I can do so.
I will, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and actually asking, and I had a little communication with Christian. When we reach that item, I will read in the city charter, or the important legal information about, hey, right now, let's all, for those that did not respond to the email, we must individually, one by one, say what communication we've had, unless you've already put that in writing to Christian. So if it's okay, can we just address that then?
That's perfectly fine. I just want everybody to be aware that that situation, and if you ask me to recuse myself, I can do so, or I can remain unbiased.
We have other commissioners that we just need them to clarify what their communication with the parties is.
As did I, yes.
So we'll have others do
Okay.
that as well.
No problem.
Okay, so
That's the first
any
thing.
other changes on the consent agenda?
Did you have another one?
Not on consent.
Oh, okay.
Not on consent or otherwise?
So I would like to bring, this is my concern. So item 500, which is a voting item, we just received that today to take a look at and digest. I understand it's been a while, I understand, we're going to get the information, but I would like us to just hear the presentation today and respectfully move the actual vote to the next commission meeting. I know that that puts a bit of pressure on timing, but what we got today, I haven't had a chance to digest it or speak to community members or even hear what others here have to say before we vote on it.
Okay.
and it's a
Well,
huge undertaking. So
it
that's-
is a massive and very important
So
undertaking.
that's just my request. I'm one of 5.
That's great. So what I would recommend is that we hear the presentation, have, I'm sure we'll have a very lengthy and as we always do, a lively discussion and lots of questions and answers, and then you can make that motion at the time. But we'll keep that in mind as we're listening. Okay? If that's acceptable to all. Okay, so if there's no other changes or notes before we get started, we'll go there are no awards presentations, there's nothing under informational agenda, so we'll go straight to public input. And anyone who wishes to take this first opportunity to speak during public input on any agenda item or subject matter will need to fill out a blue public input form. Individuals will limit their comments to 3 minutes, and representatives of groups or homeowners associations shall limit their comments to 5 minutes unless otherwise determined by the city commission. Again, as a reminder, it's not a time for question and answers. It's your time to be heard and be put on the record for your thoughts and concerns. Okay? With that being said,
So
I
that's
have
for
one
400.
blue form so far, so we'll go with Damian Cardona.
And that's going to be for the public hearing, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, that does say item 400. Thank you. I should have looked at the fine print. Thanks. Okay, so then we'll open the floor. Anyone that would like to, Mr. Gallo, take this first opportunity, right?
Good evening, everyone. Art Gallo, 199 Andina Terrace in Winter Springs, and I'd like to request, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm here representing my homeowners association, so I'd like to start by asking if I can get the 5 minutes in case I need it.
Sounds great.
Okay, the topic is item 500. And, I'm not up here to poo-poo the presentation that I did read and looked at, because a lot of hard and good work went into it, and we need it. We need that plan, because that's the basis of our, what we own, our assets, what's it going to take to maintain all those assets, and come up with a good, honest, accurate stormwater rate. So I'm here in support of it, but I think as long as we acknowledge it's a starting point, because I do have some concerns. We need more information than is currently available in the plan, is my feeling. We need to acknowledge that the 25% credit provided to gated HOAs is that we should acknowledge that and consider increasing that credit if a valid stormwater maintenance and repair expenses can be proven. I've been working with the city staff, and I'd like to thank publicly Christian Gowan, who's been very helpful, very, very timely in helping us. Our HOA is trying to get a handle ourselves on what our stormwater requirements are. We have 5 ponds. And we look at the plats and we can read the boundary lines and things like that. But we're trying to find out, we started with looking for what's our developer's agreement say. And oh, in case I didn't mention, I'm in Howell Creek Reserve Community Association, sorry about that. So we were looking for a developer's agreement, because that would probably put in relatively plain English what the requirements are. Well, we can't locate one. So we actually had a meeting here at City Hall and looked at the plats that are available online, along with the county appraiser's website, and found it interesting that the data doesn't always line up, especially when you look at the plats from the bird's eye view when they overlaid satellite pictures. So there's problems with that. And when you try to figure out where the boundaries are, so you can, hey, we own this, you own that, it's confusing. There are tracts marked for conservation dedicated to HOA maintenance, and there's tracts marked for the city, because you have drainage easements. But we're trying to find out, okay, what are the requirements there? What's specific to every tract? Notes are very broad and can be read in different ways. There's also, in the plan, it talks about hybrid ponds, public ponds, and private ponds. And even the plan recognizes that 40 out of the 95 hybrid ponds don't have recorded maintenance responsibilities. What the plan doesn't recognize is when you go on the ground and look, like in our case, if you go to Vista Willa, right there by the Howell Creek Reserve main gate, there's a gutter in the Vista Willa Street, and it goes right into our private supposedly pond. So there's hybrid ponds out there that aren't recognized, that we need to recognize. And as I read through it and look at the options, what we're finding, or at least I'm finding, is that it probably supports choosing option 2 for now, because more data and research is needed to get the plan to be more accurate to identify what's really out there and what the requirements are. I want to add some talk about cost fee in my ending here, because our HOA met with staff last 25 September on the subject of stormwater. We pointed out that 5 years of data, 21 to 25, our treasurer has documented we invested $156,000 in our stormwater infrastructure. Now that breaks out to $122 per homeowner per year. Now add $7.50 a month on top of that for our stormwater fee, and that includes a 25% break. Our homeowners invest $212 a year in our soft water infrastructure, or $17.67 a month over that 5-year period. Now, that would equate to $242 a year, or $20.17 a month, without that 25% credit. So I asked that the gated HOA credit should be acknowledged in writing in the plan, and HOAs that can document valid stormwater investments should be granted an increase in their 25% credit. How do you do that or if you do that, obviously, is up to you and the city. Please consider this, and I hope you'll see there's still much more planning work to do, and this is a great start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Pretty informative. Anyone else that would like to take this first opportunity to address the commission and be heard? That is true. So just to clarify, the Deputy Mayor is just pointing out as a reminder, during item 400, the Bird Road lot split, there will be another opportunity to comment on that specific topic and just that topic alone. And then the next opportunity to speak will be after the meeting, if you'd like to come back and comment on the storm water pond maintenance or any other time is either now or at the end of the meeting. Okay? Just to clarify. So last call for public input. Seeing none, we'll close public input, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners' discussion?
Seeing nothing on the
Not
consent
seeing
agenda,
any. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion's made by the Deputy Mayor. A second?
I'll second.
Great. Seconded by Commissioner Baker and Christian.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Wonderful. And that also includes our barbecue for children. And thank you. Congratulations. Looking forward to continuing to work together. Okay. That then we'll move right along. Forgive me as I kind of get all my notes organized. So public hearings agenda, move right to it. Item 400 and the adoption of resolution 2026-01 related to 1447 Bird Road lot split. Who is going to, oh yeah, so actually I apologize. And Anthony, or Christian, I don't have the legal wording here handy. Do you happen to have that handy?
You want me to read it?
Sure, if you don't mind.
It should
It'll
be in there.
faster.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Pursuant to Florida statute, if the mayor or any city commissioner receives and/or sends ex parte communications regarding any application filed with the city, the mayor or any city commissioner must publicly disclose such communications before or during the hearing at which a vote is taken on the quasi-judicial matter, so that persons who have opinions contrary to those expressed in the ex parte communications are given a reasonable opportunity to refute or respond to the communications.
Okay, so then, for those that are listening or that are present, so for example, I made a formal response or sent an email to the city clerk that I had received emails from concerned residents about this project, and that after the last meeting, I met with one of the gentlemen that's also concerned about this project. As I was walking out, I heard his opinion in the lobby as I was walking out, let him kind of voice his concerns. And I put that in writing, sent it to the city clerk. So because we're talking about something like this, the expectation is that the city commission simply comes, opens, talks about what communication they've had with any party interested, that there's a record of it, and that, as the deputy mayor mentioned, he has concerns because he also knows one of the people concerned for or against this property. So why don't we start with the deputy mayor, and then we'll just kind of roll through and make sure that there's, have you emailed and sent everything in that formally dictates, or is there anything else we should know or that the residents should know? So, sorry.
Thanks for asking. First of all, yes, I did have an initial phone conversation. I think I mentioned that 2 meetings ago. And I received in that phone conversation, I received text messages which related to the document, sharing that there was concerns. I had sent those to Christian and Anthony and the city manager. And I also received an email, which I did not respond to.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So that was my communication.
okay, and then was there something
So-
about a relationship?
So
Okay.
if you want it from my side of it right now, one of the other property owners is somebody who used to work for me, okay?
And
Has-
adjoining property, not the property.
Not the current
specific.
property owner, no, one of the other, the concerned property owners. This person used to work at my practice, has not worked there in over a year. In fact, has another position elsewhere. And so if my peers up here feel that that is a concern and they want me to recuse myself, I will do so. But that's up to you all. I do not feel it's a concern from my side. Just leave it there.
Okay, so you've had a relationship, a professional relationship with a neighboring resident who's concerned, or has voiced their opinion against it. You
Correct.
don't believe it's a concern. Commission members, would you prefer that the deputy mayor just simply recuses himself, or or do we take it face value that he does not believe that this will interfere with his judgment? I'll throw that at the commission, but at the same time, maybe Anthony.
Yeah,
that's-
my understanding is this person just a former employee. That does not rise to the level technically of a voting conflict. So.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's my opinion on that. I think the commissioner is asking if there's any preference. I mean, voting conflict is basically up to the commissioner in situations like this. If they do not believe that they can judge this matter impartially, then in an abundance of caution, a commissioner could recuse themselves under those circumstances in a quasi-judicial matter, but it is not required in this particular case because the person that he's speaking about, again, is a former employee.
Okay, okay. Any discussion about that from the commission or concerns? Does anyone have feelings that the deputy mayor should recuse himself? Seeing none, then we'll move forward. Any other commissioners?
So I met with the residents around the property before the first meeting in December, I believe. Before the meeting, I met with a few of the residents about their concerns. And after the last meeting, I got a text message from the residents also asking why it was postponed. Told them why it was postponed. And then I believe we all might have gotten emails from the applicant. Was it the applicant?
From neighbors, I don't believe I ever received one from
Was
applicant.
Yeah, I think it was the applicant. And then I think I responded back with what was the square footage of the new house. And I think that was it. I don't even think I got an answer. Was it from you? Oh, you want to know the name?
Or maybe as a record, if you can find it, just forward it to Christian so it goes on the record.
Yeah, okay. And
Is
I
that
asked what the square
acceptable?
footage was, and I didn't get an answer.
Right. The idea here, folks, is we're just trying to make sure that this is government in the sunshine, for lack of a better term, or that we're just all being open about any kind of conflicts or anything like that, right? We're a community of neighbors. This is, frankly, this conversation is kind of neighbors against, I don't want to say neighbors against neighbors, but everybody has their opinion, and we just want to make sure that everything's out in the open.
I received a text from a friend that does not live in the neighborhood, just saying that he was that some of his friends that were adjacent property owners would like to have a conversation with me, and that took place with me and Mr. Sweet and Brian Dunnigan at the same time, and that was before the first meeting. And then I went out to the property and just took a look with them as well, and I got one additional email, which I forwarded it on to the city clerk and city attorney.
Okay. Anybody else?
I sent a text message records to Christian in regards to speaking to one of the constituents, a nearby resident, with concerns of this lot split.
And I've already disclosed everything to the city clerk.
Wonderful. Okay, so with that being done, let's move forward. Okay. Madam.
Hello, good evening. My name is Janelle Garnett, and I am a senior planner for the community development here at the City of Winter Springs. The item before us is item 400, which is located at 1447 Bird Road, and they're proposing a lot split. This item was heard, previously was held at a meeting for the City Commission December 8th and at January 12th, both times removed, and to consider new information. At the last previous one on January 12th, the City Commission continued the agenda item to date certain, which is today, February 9th. Just a little background. This is highlighted in green. This is the property or subject property. Address, once again, is 1447 Bird Road. They submitted the application September 6th of 2024, and public notice letters went out December 9th, and the applicant is Damian Cardonas and Kristen Cardona. The property is located within the Tallies Crossing plat, which was approved by City Commission on August 25th of 2008. It is currently located within the C1, which is Single Family Dwelling District zoning district, and which requires a 1 acre minimum lot size. And the future land use is rural residential, which requires 1 dwelling unit per gross area. And the proposal is to split the current lot into 2, resulting 1 acre lots of record, which would meet the following requirements, which this particular property does. If they did do a lot split, each new lot split standalone would meet the criteria. And these are just Section 2145 from code explaining building area regulations, and also from the comp plan is the rural comprehensive plan is the rural residential, just basically showing where that information came from. About RC1 and the rural residential. Also, this is just depicting the area currently and the lot sizes that are along Bird Road, and just showing the various sizes. And our subject property is surrounded in the blue right there, and just showing the different lot sizes. And here's the proposed lot split. Currently, the proposed rear lot is has a house being constructed. It's 6,000 square feet. There has been no permit or anything, of course, for a house for the front lot. And this is just showing the new lot, standalone. And this is just exhibit showing the buildable area illustration, showing that the yellow highlighting the buildable area and the square footage with meeting all setbacks, and also not being located within the easement that is going through the property, and it also is surrounded with utility easements. But this is just showing where the buildable area can be proposed and meet all setbacks and all other codes. And with that said, staff recommends that the City Commission adopt Resolution 2026-01, approving a lot split application for the property located at 1447 Bird Road, Runner Springs, Florida, in order to divide the one originally platted lot with into two resulting lots of record. And that concludes staff presentation. And just as a little side caveat, the applicant is here if you have any questions for them. And
Thank you, Ms. Gurnett. And Lou, you can just start.
Can I just ask her a quick
Yeah,
question?
please, you can go first.
The 15-foot access easement, that's for the driveway to connect the two? Is that what that is, or is that something separate?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner,
Do you have plans for the size of the new house that he wants to build?
in the front,
Yes.
not currently. We can't, until you put in a permit to construct, at that point, it's, something we can't even look at because we'd have to review it for all the related divisions to make
So-
sure it's even doable.
So it's only buildable in that area,
Correct,
the 4,389 square foot?
correct.
so just as an example, the 2,000 square foot home or 2,500 square foot home would fit on that and still stay outside of the, is there? or-
And
or
at this
is-
point, the lot doesn't exist.
And the light doesn't exist yet, so, yeah, right, exactly. Okay.
This is all hypothetical
I
at
didn't
this
mean to
point.
interrupt you, Commissioner Caruso. I'll let you.
No, you answered it, almost.
Then Deputy Mayor.
Asked and answered.
Asked and answered? Oh, okay. Other questions? Okay, I one or two. So the staff recommendation to approve, and Anthony, you might want to bring in on this, the bottom line is it meets all conditions, codes, ordinances of the city for allowable use. And the staff recommendation is based on what we have on the books. That's, sure, Anthony, right?
Well, I thought you were directing that, staff's opinion is that it meets all the requirements of the city code.
And,
Even with respect to the issue of compatibility, staff's opinion is that this would be compatible, but the staff did note some facts for the city commission to consider around compatibility.
okay.
And
Then I'll move on to, there was wording, and we heard repeatedly, which caused some of these delays, was that there was some document out there signed by and agreed upon by the property owners, including this property, that had some kind of an agreement restricting this type of thing. Is there any evidence of a document like that? Is there some kind of agreement, or is the city staff or Anthony or any commission member aware of a document that would restrict this?
the only document, I think what you're alluding to, Mayor, is that there was one document that was mentioned at one of the prior commission meetings where the commission tabled an item. After the commission meeting, I reviewed that particular document. It was an unrecorded, one-page screenshot of a document. I could not determine from that document that it even applies to this particular property in this case. So, with respect to that question, I'm not aware, other than what staff has put in the agenda item, of relevant documents.
That would prohibit that?
That would, yeah.
Okay. Those are my questions. Commissioner?
Yes. If this is legal and all the conditions are met, and why is it coming before the commission to vote?
Yeah.
So if we were to say no, and it's legal to do, how does that work?
Well, first, the city commission has to consider approval of lot split applications the subdivision of land. So that's why the application is before the commission. There is criteria that has to be applied with respect to this application, and at the end of the day, the city commission has the final say on whether or not an application meets the criteria. I mean, you've heard staff's recommendation and opinion, but, you know, staff doesn't make the decision, the commission makes the decision based on what's presented to you. So that's, you know, that's why it's being presented to the commission. And of course, the applicant is gonna have something to say because it's their application, and you should weigh what they have to say and determine whether or not this application's in compliance.
Before, just to make a point here, just for, this is the way I am looking at, can we go back to the slide where it shows more of the, like, 10,000 square foot or the aerial kind of view of the lots?
Sure.
And I guess one of the things that is the argument on by the two adjoining properties is that they don't want smaller lot sizes. They don't want 1 acre, but it's my understanding, but with all of these within 100 yards that are significantly smaller, that are well under an acre, and are within what appears to me to be 50, 100 yards, I'm guessing at that number, but they're already there. And then we certainly have them all over here. I understand, and I really do, I genuinely understand how the two adjoining properties, or at least I believe it's one in particular, that's really upset. They don't want to see that split into 1 acre lots. There are much smaller lots within 100 yards, and it is there. I understand, but they are meeting what appears to me to be every legal, right? Do we take someone's right away to do what's on the books as allowable? And that's a difficult ask. I understand, I really do. But with that being said, if there's no further discussion?
Did we have any public input on that?
Oh, thank you, madam.
But the applicant should be given an opportunity to present.
Sir, is there anything that you would like to say to the commission? And then if others would like to be heard, we'll allow anyone to be heard and to follow.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Damian Cardona, applicant for 1447 Bird Road. Basically just here in support of the application and here to rely primarily on the staff's report and analysis that shows that the application complies with applicable zoning and subdivision code, and really just happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Are there any questions?
Just one. I believe it was the first meeting, and you said something, and I kept thinking about it, and I just wanted to know why you said that you can't sell the existing house until you split the lot.
So a short summary of that is originally was building this dream house with my mom, and she passed. The bank that has the construction loan out with us said at the time that we wouldn't, when it converts from a construction loan to a traditional mortgage, they basically rerun your credit and your finances. And my mom at the time had a really good paying job, which allowed us to qualify for the mortgage. And they said if we got certificate of occupancy, it triggers a 30-day countdown to when it converts. And if I don't qualify, then it can kind of go south from there. So at the time, my fiance and I discussed what options we had, and that's when we discovered a lot split was an option that we could pursue. And the idea was to go in with our builder and try to increase the value of the house to sell it so we could hopefully get the lot split and build a home that's more applicable to our income and size and our family needs, how they are now, as opposed to how they were when it started.
But did the bank tell you that you can't sell it until it's split?
No, I mean, as long as it's, so,
I'm just trying to understand where you came up with that.
so we, basically, from my understanding is we can go through the process of listing a house, and we could probably make some contractual agreements with a potential buyer that says you have to allow this to continue happening should you like close on the house. But it would just cause more headaches and like listing details saying it's only a 1 acre house, but really at the time it would be 2 acres. So it would just make the process a lot cleaner.
You would essentially have to sell a 2-acre lot house and then expect them to do the lot split for you
Yeah,
in good faith.
In some way, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, you can't sell someone a.
Yeah, you can't sell.
You can't sell, right.
You
have
need,
to
you
sell
need
it.
the legal document, the legal
Need
land
the-
rights.
and You're asking us to provide you the legal document to allow you to sell
Pretty
that
much,
house?
yeah.
Okay. So your family's not going to occupy that house?
Not the one
It's
that's
too
currently
big.
being built, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Commissioner?
So clarify, you will not be residing in Lot 1 or 2?
Lot 2 is the plan.
You
yes.
will be residing in Lot 2?
Yep.
And then Lot 1 you will sell? And there's ingress and egress for both?
Yes, that's the 15-foot cross-access easement, which there was a document provided to staff.
Okay.
That basically runs from Bird Road back until the driveway of the current Lot 1 house.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Take a seat. Anyone that would like to be heard on this specific topic? I believe this is the third time it's come before us. So,
I'll make a
I
motion.
was going to say,
You go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Item,
motion is made by Commissioner Baker,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Christian?
Commissioner Bruce, or, sorry, Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
No.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Again, we do fully understand the impact on the neighbors and things, but there are some property rights there. Okay, moving on. On to the regular agenda. Okay, stormwater pond maintenance program, the much anticipated,
Yay.
yeah, this is important stuff. Yeah, I think we've said for a long time, folks, that wastewater was the single largest priority we had, but stormwater will be something our community will be facing for decades. So, Cleet?
Thank you, Mayor McCann, City Commissioners, Cleet Saunier, Public Works and Utilities Director for the city. I'm joined tonight with our consultants from Kimley Horn, Julia Felter and Marcus Geiger. And although not present physically, but certainly here in spirit, and his touch has been placed upon all of the activities in our stormwater improvement program, is David Hamstra with Pegasus Engineering. He's provided some very good due diligence and peer review for us that makes everything seem a little bit more accurate and tighter. So you should have already received a copy, and Commissioner Resnick had mentioned earlier, an electronic copy today of the program or the presentation. You've also received, hopefully, in your hard copy in your packets of the presentation. But just to give you a little overview and an introduction on what we're going to be presenting tonight and maybe some understanding of where we're coming from. You recall that on December 18th, when we presented the stormwater master plan, and you adopted that, we mentioned the next essential step would be the stormwater pond maintenance policy, in which we would need to get some numbers of ponds and how many numbers of those ponds would actually roll into a cost for the rate study. So tonight represents the second step, if you will, before we get into the pond or the stormwater utility rates. So this presentation is a culmination of over 6 months of staff and consultant research and legwork to determine the full extent of the number of ponds in the city. There happen to be over 360 ponds in the boundaries of the city of Winter Springs, 367 or 8. And you'll note in the presentation tonight that they're going to be classified into 3 primary categories: private, public, hybrid. Hybrid's a new term. That'll be further defined in the presentation you'll hear tonight. But the overarching and overriding factor which determined the difference between private and what I consider public and hybrid in another category is whether or not those ponds in the stormwater improvement and maintenance of the city, the system, infrastructure system, is whether they provide a public need. That public need is whether or not a public road right-of-way or adjacent properties, whether it be a park or open space, is actually being served through a lake inside that development. If that development has a questionable whether or not it's a public designated pond, or whether it has public access dedicated to the public, is associated with the adjacent roads that are perhaps surrounding that lake or pond, then it is included as a hybrid, okay? That will be defined tonight in the presentation. Although they're not present tonight, our consultants from Raftellus have looked at the numbers associated with these ponds and the various numbers. They've come up with a cost per pond over a 15-year cycle of being able to maintain those, and included those costs and roll those up into what an anticipated rate adjustment would be. I hope that you will look at those and understand that there's a magnitude of difference between just public hybrids with recorded easements and hybrids, all hybrids being included in that cost. And so when you're considering the fact that private ponds are those ponds which only serve that individual development and do not necessarily fulfill a public need for us to be able to expend public dollars on, that those are excluded for that very reason. There's no cost associated with the private ponds tonight, simply because in staff's recommendation and opinion, those private ponds do not serve a public need and therefore cannot, we would not feel comfortable expending public funds on them. So kind of going back to the staff report, we're recommending at the conclusion of this that you would give us some guidance and reach a consensus on adopting the city's pond maintenance program and directing staff to incorporate the related costs for the program into the forthcoming stormwater utility rate study. I understand there's some concern about maybe postponing that. Staff is here to do what you wish us to do. We'll take as long as you want on this. We're not going to try to force the issue if you do not feel comfortable with it. We want to make sure everybody's good with it and be able to come back. So there's no pressure, at least from staff, that would indicate that we need to do this tonight. Although it'd be nice to be able to get this going and get our rates coming in so that we can actually do the work. And just as a final reminder, our typical presentation guidelines, if you would hold your questions to the end, allow our consultants to finish the presentation, and ask your questions at the end, I think it would go a lot more smoothly and more quickly and efficiently. So if there are no questions, I'd ask Julie if you want to start the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julia Felter with Kimley Horn. Here is our agenda for today to talk about the stormwater pond maintenance program. So we're going to go over some definitions that Clete mentioned, current level of service, the ponds within the city, public ponds, anticipated level of service, estimated cost for that, additional maintenance that we'll touch on, and then the impact to the rates. It's a new angle here. I'm trying to figure out which is the best way to look.
We're trying to kind of make it so that people see the time clock during public input a little more, and
so like Clete mentioned, public ponds are ponds that are on city-owned property that receive drainage from city roads. Hybrid ponds are not on city-owned property, but may receive drainage from public roads. And then private ponds are on private property that receive private or stormwater from private roads. As we go through this, we may talk about some more land-specific terms. So drainage easement is indicated by those two orange lines. So that's typically a space allowed for the city to access a pipe. The right-of-way is land that is dedicated to the city. So there is a 50-foot right-of-way shown in green. And then the third would be a land tract. So land that is dedicated to the city for a special function. So we use the word tract for stormwater ponds or lift station parcels. That's circled in blue on the bottom, so that illustrates those three elements. So the city's current level of service with the staff is to monthly inspect and treat aquatic vegetation, mow and remove debris around stormwater ponds, do minor erosion repairs, and limited visual inspections for pond banks, outfall structures, all while rapidly responding to any reported damages. So, as Clete mentioned, there's a lot of ponds in the city of Winter Springs. We dug through the Seminole County Property Appraiser, the recorded plats, the GIS to figure out which categories all these ponds fit in. So we categorize them as DOT, Seminole County, public or city-owned, hybrids, and then private ponds. You can see the breakdown here. There's 180 ponds, excuse me. So about 1/3 are not considered city ponds or hybrid ponds. 2/3 are. And we're gonna break down that 2/3 number, or I'm sorry, 1/3 number as we keep going. So here's an illustration of where all those ponds are with their associated ownership. So green is DOT, yellow are hybrid ponds, red are private ponds, blue are public ponds, and orange, that's way down there, is Seminole County ponds. So you can see they're all spread out throughout the city, different areas, mostly along, you can see like DOT's mostly along your 434 area, and then the others are sprinkled throughout. So breaking that down even further, public ponds and hybrid ponds, there are 48 public ponds, so on city property, and then there are 95 hybrid ponds. So 55 of them have recorded maintenance responsibilities. So when we say that, we're saying that it is recorded either on the plat or in a maintenance agreement that the city has an easement or a track to service the pond. So there's 55 of those. There's 40 that receive, so we're going back to hybrid, 40 not on public property that receives drainage from public roads that do not have records. So we're using that delineation. It's recorded on their plat, it's not recorded on their plat. So that's summarized in this breakdown here. And this will come back and be reflected in the scenarios for the rates, so just wanted to summarize that on this table. Also, we've broken them down into wet and dry ponds because they have different maintenance requirements, and we'll add detail to that in a few slides. So once we remove the ponds that do not fall in public or hybrid categories, the service map now looks like this. So with the anticipated stormwater maintenance program, we will be adding to the level of service. So addressing major erosion repairs, doing yearly visual inspections, yearly inspections of the outfalls, and then proactive maintenance is something that is increasing this cost, and the cost breakdown is going to be on the next page. So proactive maintenance, localized sediment removal, outfall protection evaluations, structure repairs, etc. So a wet pond is just what it sounds like. It has water in it. It's considered a stormwater detention pond, and a dry pond is a retention pond. So if you ever wondered the difference between a detention and retention, it's whether there is stormwater currently in it, actively in it, or not. So with those two different types of ponds, there's multiple elements for maintenance, and they differ. So the cost for maintaining a wet pond is higher. There's more moving parts in there, more erosion, stuff like that. And then for maintaining a dry pond, it's lower. You can see there's few items that need to be evaluated. And like Cleet said, these are current present-day cost for a lifespan of 15 years for the pond. Oh, there we go. So this program is one element of the rate study. As you can see, there's multiple elements in there. So the operating costs, the staff and equipment, rehab maintenance, budget lines, those are already lines that are in place right now. And then we're looking to expand the stormwater pond maintenance program. So the first scenario we're going to present is public ponds only. This is for a total of 48 ponds, broken down over 15-year lifespan, so aiming to do 2 wet ponds a year, 1 dry pond a year. And you can see that increases the rate about $1.40 per month. Scenario 2, along the same lines, this includes hybrids with recorded access for the city. So what we talked about earlier, that it's on the deed, it's on the plat, it's documented and recorded. So that brings the pond count up to 103 ponds. Splitting those wet-dry counts over, 15-year cycles, we're looking at 5 wet ponds, 2 dry ponds, to increase the rate for $3.75. And then last scenario is public ponds and all hybrid ponds, so recorded and non-recorded. So that would bring the pond total up to 143, spread them out over 15 years, increases the rate to $4.80. Putting all those together in a side-by-side on this table, just so you can see as the pond number increases, naturally the rate is also going to increase. And then, do you have any questions? Of course. I knew there would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bruce, you're up first.
Yes. Are we currently providing maintenance to the hybrid ponds that do not have documentation?
There is a chance. We have not gone through legal to back check all of those, but there is a chance.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, my understanding is, and this is just a follow-up, Commissioner Bruce, if you don't mind. So the problem that we seem to be faced, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, we had this hodgepodge where there were like handshakes, and we're doing some ponds and not other ponds, and some are recorded and some aren't, and there just seems to, somewhere along the way, there's been some handshakes or agreements that kind of casual, nothing in writing, and we spray some ponds and other ones we don't. Is that, what we're trying to do is clean this whole thing up.
Right.
Define what our responsibilities are, what we're going to do, and what we're willing to spend on it.
So currently, there is a city maintenance list, and we do have that. But we, to your point, wanted to clean that all up. We started with the facts and the details of the parcels in the property appraiser and what's recorded in plots, where are easements for drainage and all of that. So this is based on a no handshake deal, all bars off, like this is the data from recorded information.
Great. So residents who live on these ponds will know whether or not they qualify and what exactly is going on. Okay, I'm sorry. Let the others go first. Commissioner Bruce, did you have other questions?
I do, but give me a minute because now I forgot.
I'll come back to you. Commissioner Baker.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the recorded and not recorded ones, which it sounds like everybody else is too. For the ones that we know are not recorded and we are maintaining, are they receiving the discount on their current stormwater, those neighborhoods?
So we did not go that finite yet because there are other things in play with the whole maintenance discount. And when the pond list is set, that's gonna obviously be a conversation.
Okay.
Commissioner
I
Burris.
remembered, okay.
Yeah.
So the ponds that are not documented, that don't spell out, the city is responsible, do you feel like that was more of, maybe a phase in the development, like it was done prior to
Yes.
2008, it didn't have it, and now it does, or something like that?
Yes, so there are a lot of plats that date back to 1914, 1927. So along their development process, they had not updated their plat. So the dedication is not recorded.
So do you think newer ponds versus older ponds have maintenance responsibilities from the city, or vice versa?
The newer ponds will have the correct documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Can I'm sorry, just to follow up on her question, is the correct documentation that we're taking care of them or that they're taking care of them? Can you clarify
It's
that?
whatever the deed says.
Okay.
So whatever it's been dictated on the plot says.
Okay.
So there are some new plats that say the city or any public will not touch this. There's new plots that say this tract is dedicated to the city.
Okay.
So that is recorded.
Thank you.
Commissioner Resnick.
All right, let's start with the public and hybrid. To me, that means we should be involved in all of those. That's my 2 cents. It's a hybrid just means, well, somewhere along the lines, we can figure out we should be touching them. But let's start with the private ponds, right? Is there any stormwater that runs into them? And we're saying, well, we're not responsible for that, yet in the past, we have been responsible for that. There's just not a plat that's attached to it. So part of my conversation with staff prior was what defines how we deal with this? Because especially as I'm looking at the west side here, it sort of looks like, oh, everything is private for the most part. Yet there's a lot of areas there where stormwater runs right into those areas. Now, I'm not talking specifically on the golf course, but if you take a look at those other areas, even some of those areas where the golf course runs through, there's a purpose for that water, right? So is our flow of water there, it's not a gated community, that's a concern for me. And so as we look to define this, that was part of the original project was if it's stormwater that is flowing there, that we need it, what's the purpose? Is it something that we should be cleaning, maintaining, et cetera? That's a concern that I have right here. Secondly to that, I put in my note how many have a public path through, but how many of those stormwater areas flow to the creeks? How many of those private ponds then eject back to the creeks? That might be for you, I don't know, or from the original study, but that's not a question for now, but it's a question to put on, let's take a look, because if it is flowing from stormwater into that pond out to the creeks, we've got to make sure that there's no blockage. Right? That's a concern I would have.
Well, I
Same-
think that goes into requiring maintenance and inspection of these, which is the next layer,
Well, but that, these,
Of private. but for
yeah.
private only.
Because they're saying it's private only, but some of these that I'm looking at here, I know after storms I've walked through and a prior administration said, oh, well, we got to unblock that quickly so we can get water flowing, and it looks like a couple of these are those.
Are you referencing those big red ones over in the left corner?
A couple of big
Essentially.
ones, like the two that are on the golf course are to that.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah, nobody can see my fingers, right? These two are the golf course here, but there's that big pond that's right there. I don't know if that's what the detail, but I know that flows here to Soldiers Creek, and it flows down into, City Manager O'Brien or Clete, help me, it goes into that area in the Highlands, all the way through before it goes out to Jessup.
So you're suggesting that the roads that are near them are impacting those? Okay.
Because, yeah, everything flows down into there. So I'm just curious if that is a city, because the stormwater flows into there, if it's a city catch. And it's not just this one area, I'm just using that as an example.
This feeds to your question, if
Yeah.
I can, and maybe it'll clarify. I guess I have very direct questions. A, is the city currently, in some shake hand deal, maintaining or servicing any ponds that are on the private list currently?
Mr. Fox is here. I wonder if his property.
That you're aware of?
I'm not aware of.
Okay.
To answer your
Okay.
Vice Mayor Cade's question regarding the golf course lakes. We can look at those again between now and the next meeting and evaluate a little bit more if that's something that you would like us to consider. I would note that those are very large lakes. They're very expensive to maintain, so there will be a related cost associated with those in the rate study as well.
But so are these over here as well, right?
Understood, absolutely.
So that's why I wanted to make sure, because
I think the key factor, though, is can you trace that back to a public need?
that's my
And
question.
if the
Right.
public need is a road right-of-way that we are by our authority are required to maintain, and the lack of maintenance on that pond causes a drainage issue on the road that could cause a vehicular accident, et cetera, there's a public need for that. How much of that there is, I don't know. Should there be a rate assessed against that particular entity, the golf course, that's discounted or not, to be able to maintain those ponds, to be able to call for that? Those are details that we're not really prepared to. We need to get the groundwork, like the 20,000-foot view, if you will, halfway between 40 and the ground, to be able to say, here's where we want you to go, staff. We're going to come back and present to you what those are, what those costs are related. And we're going to have a year of experience and maybe probably have to come back to you again next year to give a refresh on the rates to make sure that we're actually charging sufficiently to maintain what you've charged us to do. There's also details involved in, as Julie had mentioned, on dedicated easements, whether we can actually access those lakes, whether those lakes are dedicated to a private entity or not, whether they're in a gated community, but somehow, I think Mr. Gallo had mentioned, it provides some drainage to a public road that may connect to a lake. We haven't got into that kind of granular detail yet, but we certainly could do that before the next meeting, or even as you adopt the rates, let's go back and have an actual expenditure report to come back to you with. This is all very new for the city.
Yep.
It's all very new for many areas. I've met with public works directors today, and I mean, most of them are still trying to get their arms wrapped around their stormwater infrastructure and being able to address that. So we're not alone, I'll put it that way.
And part of Clete, as we share this, because also here, Lido and Alton that are down here, because they have culverts that are attached to that as well. So then the culvert would be ours, as, and City Manager Clete, I believe as we had DOT also participate, we took out how much sediment from that, which should clear some of that pathway. Is that something for, that's listed here as private right now, at least from my eyes. Is that something that we should be picking up?
We'll take another re-review at that, just to make sure.
Maybe to clarify, if I may, my second part of that, my first question was, I guess we're going to have to acknowledge and discuss, will there be an appeals process? If someone says, hey, this is not fair, can we have an appeals process? And then second, what is the potential legal exposure if we start allowing in this private pond, but not this private pond? And we're going to have to be real careful, and we'll just have to probably attack those issues at a later date. But some kind of appeal process where somebody can come back and say, hey, I don't think that's fair, like Mr. Gallo.
We're not really considering that at this point in time, but it's certainly something that would probably be at your disposal during the rate study meetings, and potentially having legal weigh in on the effectiveness of that and whether or not we're able to do it. That's outside of my wheelhouse in terms of the legality of that. I think until we actually have at least a minimum standard that you want us to meet, let's go about doing that, and then have this be a living document that we can actually add to and take from, depending on what we can discover down the road. Okay,
If I
but
may.
we have to have a starting point somewhere.
We do, but I'll share this, that I'm somewhat frustrated sitting at this seat because this is a more than 2-year process. And I know it's not you, Clete, I know it's not you currently, city manager, but this was started over 2 years ago, and the promise was we would have this all ironed out by the time it's presented to us. So the fact it's not ironed out is frustrating from my seat.
Okay.
It's frustrating for me to share with the residents that it's sort of like, well, we think maybe possibly it could not. At this point,
Well-
that part of it is frustrating me. I
Okay.
appreciate that we've broken it down, but I think we're still at level 1.
This, again, is one bite out of the elephant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have to start doing it, and we will continue to be dealing with this for decades. But we gotta get started.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm
No,
just
and
frustrated.
I'm not, yeah, I hear you. I think our residents have every reason to be frustrated. I think the deputy mayor has a reason to be frustrated in that, but we have to continue to move the needle. There's several people on this dais have been elected because of stormwater and people losing their homes and things. We need to start, and so, let's get at it. Right? That's my, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bruce.
Yes. Can you provide clarification on, there's 180 private, but there's 40 hybrid that do not have recorded maintenance responsibilities. What's the difference?
The difference is they would receive stormwater from city roads,
Thank you.
is the hybrid category.
Okay.
Commissioner Baker.
Going back to Deputy Mayor Resnick's point on some of those private ponds, I would just like to specifically ask for something to come back with, is I think there's a difference between surface structure runoff, just the fact that there's roads and homes and displacement of water versus stormwater drains that are directly flowing into these ponds. So I think that's where I would want to know the difference. It sounds like these private ponds do not have any direct link to stormwater, but I would like to make sure that that's clarified. If it's just runoff because of surface area, that can't be avoided. But if we are draining purposely into these ponds, then we need to know about that.
Are you asking for just private or for all?
Well, it sounds like the hybrid ones, you've already clarified that, so just private.
I don't see any buttons lit. I think it might also be important, just as a note, that there are very significant restrictions. If you cannot, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, if you cannot show a greater good, a public impact, it is my understanding, maybe illegal isn't the right word, but we cannot spend public funds, your tax dollars, on private property. That is restricted. We cannot benefit, right? And that goes across our entire nation. You can't do it without showing a greater good. There has to be a purpose that helps the masses, not just a small group of well-connected folks. It's got to serve the greater good. If you're going to ask that folks living in Hacienda Village, in a mobile home community or in a manufactured home on a fixed income to help pay for someone's private pond where they live in a $2 million house and things, you better be able to show why and how that's fair. We've got to be able to show that. And that burden will come down on consultants, and we can revisit things, we can talk and make sure we're getting it right. This is a starting point. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Diaz.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And just a quick point, just to follow up on something you just said, because my lit up button over here is actually a question for the city manager and city attorney. But you had made the point of, for example, residents in Hacienda having to, foot the bill. That was exactly the point that I was making when we were having the tax increase for the stormwater, that there are folks that are lower income and they have much smaller water bills. And although mine has doubled in just the last 5 years, it is still, minuscule compared to what other folks, I've seen online complaining about their utility bill. And the stormwater fee is obviously included in that. So it's a higher percentage there. So obviously when you think about progressive taxation, even if you look in the federal code, obviously the more money you make bracket-wise, so there is a point to that as far as, someone having to foot the bill for, like you mentioned, $2 million home while someone is living in a manufactured home. My question for the city manager and city attorney on the, on HOAs and the private ponds in the HOAs. And I know at this point, there's a certain level of hypothetical to my question, so I understand that going into it. With the legislature moving pretty quickly to give HOAs the opportunity to disband, and I mean, many have outlived their usefulness in many parts of the state, so I understand where the legislature's coming from. If a HOA here in Winter Springs were to vote to disband and it disbands, does that now become a public pond, technically, or assessed maybe to the owners? I mean, do they have rights to the middle of the lake, any kind of riparian right or any other deeded right?
I mean, that's a great hypothetical. I think it would be case by case. You'd have to examine whether that's common property, whether there are underlying fee simple interests that the adjoining property owners own. I mean, how that common area would be disposed of, I don't know. Maybe that's what the legislature would consider, when they're doing whatever they're doing up there.
Because I'm assuming then part of an HOA's ROI argument would be if, when Mr. Gallo got up and said, $150,000, $200,000 in expenses, let's say, part of the ROI would be, well, we give up $200,000 in expense, we disband, and now it's a $200,000 expense plus, for the city. I mean, I don't know if that's where this would go if HOAs were then to disband.
And the impact on whatever the assets are that are controlled and maintained by the association would have to be considered. What do they own? Do they own a stormwater pond? Do they own other common areas that would be impacted? Just dissolving a homeowners association without consideration of how the unit owners in that homeowners association are going to take care of all of the common areas that are in their association is I would think, a complex issue for an association. It's not, I don't think it's going to be one size fits all.
Especially gated, where they own the
Especially if they're
streets.
gated, right?
Sure.
They have common area pools and other recreational facilities, so,
Because the HOA as an entity also has the same bundle of rights that another property owner would have. That doesn't change by the type of entity.
yeah, well, they're a little bit different, but yes,
I mean,
they do
disposition
have
obviously would be-
they have a bundle of rights, for sure.
And everyone will be different. If I can just chime in, Commissioner Diaz, I apologize, but, my friend, Dr. Marikey, who just stepped out, he lives on a pond. It is, in fact, a private pond, but it is a hybrid because all of the public streets drain into it. But their property line goes out and all meets the homes that surround it goes out. They own that pond. But he's a member of two different HOAs. There's Tuscarora, the big one, THOA, but then there's 25 smaller HOAs within it. He's a member of one of the smaller ones and the big one, but none of those HOAs own any piece of that or have responsibility for that pond. So every pond is going to be different. That will be something that will, no matter what happens with HOAs, that won't, even though he's in two different HOAs, HOAs have nothing to do with that pond. But the city has some responsibility to maintain that because the water is flowing in there and it is servicing all those roads and things. Mind you, that those homeowners that live on the pond use to reach their home and creates value for that property, but still, it is feeding in. So, I'm sorry, Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up, and this would be a question for Clayton, and I don't know if you'd like to take a stab at it too. One of those bundle of rights is exclusion. Therefore, if I want to take my cane pole, Andy Griffith style, and start going down the street and whistling and say I want to go fishing in that pond, unless there's an easement by prescription to that pond where I can walk through somebody's property, I'm trespassing. So if in some of these hybrid ponds, if we don't have the ingress egress of the city, and they're deeded to the middle of the lake, so they've got those rights as well, and obviously their backyard has, a movable line per se, as far as water is concerned, but not in property itself. They're paying taxes all the way to the middle of that lake, just like their air rights would go to the pinnacle of heavens and their subsurface rights would go to the core. Where do we start then breaking that exclusion for purposes of deciding it might be hybrid, but it's also exclusionary? Is there a line that delineates that for us?
If I'm understanding your question, I'm getting from Andy Griffith to the center point of the lakes.
I was about to break out and whistle.
If I'm understanding your question, the way that we have interpreted this is that if there's a public right-of-way, road right-of-way surrounding it, and it actually has a physical drainage connection to that pond, regardless of whether the tract is dedicated to the public or the city itself, if it's still under private ownership, not even dedicated to the HOA, we would still want to maintain that pond. As long as we have access to the shore and we can get to it and maintain it adequately from that agreement, maintenance agreement, or maintenance easement, then we would maintain that pond, aquatic vegetation, et cetera. Anything more than that, it probably would be limited without having some kind of a prescriptive right that would be actually designated by that pond to the city to provide maintenance. And that would be a major hurdle to get over to get every individual lot owner's permission. Okay? So I think in this case, we're justified and we have the ability to go in and maintain it until somebody questions that or causes a problem with that. I think we're okay for doing that. I think most people see it as a need and a benefit to their property values, et cetera, so I don't anticipate that being much of an issue. Although it could be, but I don't see it being that way.
Sure, but it's a benefit, that is being subsidized by all other
Rates.
taxpayers.
Yes.
I mean,
Well-
no different than any other government program that's created.
That community would be paying their utility rate just the same as everyone else's.
But it's a flat rate,
Correct.
but that particular community would have more of an impact of that private and even hybrid, but still, let's say private.
Well, as you know, there's varying size of ponds throughout the city.
Right.
Lake Willa is a huge lake, and then there's some on here that are very, very small.
Right.
So what we're giving to you is an average.
Sure.
Okay. So in the end, once you combine all those, it's going to balance out one way or the other. So I don't think you could say you're squeezing one into the balloon at the expense of somebody else. I think it all averages out in the end. As long as you set policy and say, we're going to do all of these, we average that cost out over 15-year time.
Right, but it's not ad valorem. I mean, it's flat per unit, which means that one unit, as a percentage of their ownership stake, is paying a higher percentage of their ownership stake than
Okay,
another.
we're going to have to go to Raftellus for that one.
Yeah, that would be millage versus a
Yeah.
flat fee, which
Yeah.
we're not doing.
I understand what you're saying, Commissioner,
I do
that
too.
if you make, $10,000 a year and you're paying $5, it means a larger percentage. If you're making $1 million a year and you're paying $5 a month, it's a much smaller.
And I mean, and if you live on the water,
So I would add,
Yeah,
there
you're going
is
great,
an
yeah.
ERU. So right now, the city says that one ERU is 5,260 feet or something like that. So there is a proportional increase, evaluation, application, whatever you want to say, to lot sizes. And that is in the ERU square footage. So we have not gone that granular for this conversation, but there are parcels that are huge that have 58 ERUs on it versus one residential unit that has one.
correct.
So there is a level of increase.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too sidetracked. Commissioner, can we move to Commissioner Baker then? Yeah.
I think I have one final question. I hope it's my last question. So that we're talking about stormwater, and we've raised the rates once to preempt this. I don't live on a pond. I don't utilize any retention ponds personally, but I do live on 2 creeks. Where is the study that shows my creek is going to stop flooding?
So that's part of the master plan in the capital improvement projects.
Okay.
I would say that you probably live on a public street.
I do.
That does divert stormwater into a body of water.
Okay.
So the stormwater rate is not just, I don't have lakefront property, it's
Right.
my driveway doesn't flood because stormwater is diverted away from me into a pond.
Right. Yeah, possibly. Or into my creek. I don't know. But yeah, I just didn't see creeks on here is what my main question. To make sure that they are getting cleaned and they have maintenance plans as well.
Deputy Mayor.
Ma'am, what you just said is exactly the point that I was trying to make, is stormwater is flowing into a creek, and it's that stormwater that's flowing into a creek, how it's getting there is us diverting it there, right? I completely understand, living in HOA myself, we have 2 ponds, a dry and a wet pond, belongs to the HOA. Understand that completely. That's tucked in. It's the other side where it's not, right? It's those whole areas where the water's flowing into it and then out. I'm concerned of blockage on both sides, even if it's a private pond, because the private ponds, how do we know they're actually taking care of the blockage, which then lifts everything and houses get flooded?
I think that's phase 2, is we implement a inspection for all the private ponds on an
But that would be
annual
some,
basis.
right, so I think that's why I wanted to digest all of this, us go back and include, we would possibly include that in, hey, you know what? This is where you've got pond not pond definitions, what was the page you had? Current level of service, right? Maybe there's a current level of service for us to inspect those and charge private pond people something. I don't know, but that's where my concern lies with them. Lido and Alton Road, I know their culvert floods drastically. That's a situation where the stormwater's going in, sediment is rising. Where's that coming from? That's a private pond listed on here. Up north there, that's where some of those others are coming from, the back of Parkstone and such. So I think there's something to the private ponds that it's more than just a simple dig. As for the other ponds, the 143, to me, I think we have to maintain all of them and just get the rest of the rights. Because I think that hybrid just really means we're missing the 48 documents.
If I can, you finished?
Yep.
Okay. Couple things to point out. I don't want to scare people and get into rate check, because this is just leading into a rate study, right?
No.
Well, they're going to take this information and plug it in, and we're going to just kind of add to our master plan, and does that sound appropriate, that we will kind of, this is the first step in a long-term plan for stormwater in our community.
And
the
this is
first
just
step.
for the ponds. So
This
this
is-
isn't going to be the final.
This increasing is just for the ponds. That's my point.
Yeah, just for
And
the pond.
so we're adding the $4.08, and we're not approving that rate increase today. We're just talking about this, right? We're giving the staff direction. We'll figure out the math later. This is just ponds. It is important to know, we have been surviving on stormwater resiliency and improvements by getting grants and pulling things in. We did a great job. We built up some resiliency when we raised the stormwater rate last year. We secured it. We went from being bankrupt and putting general fund money into it to now it's at least net, but we don't have, it's holding its own, but it's not making any improvements. Unless we continue to be able to go out and grab every grant and money. We've been very successful at doing that, but we need to understand this is the first step, and then we'll get there. We will. I do, Deputy Mayor, I think what I'm hearing you say, and I want to just acknowledge it, because I think it is important. We do not want the folks on the west side and living off Shioa and near the golf course to think, look, that was all, the Highlands was built out prior to the existence of the St. John's Water Management District. It was kind of lackluster. Now, many of those homes would never, ever been able to be built, or the land would have been built up, or they would have been on stilts. They never would have been allowed now, but they were built prior to. And so we cannot ignore the pain that those folks in the Highlands are going through. Going through there after Ian was devastating. We did lose hundreds of homes in our community, in the city of Winter Springs, people with 2 foot of water in their homes. We have some kind of responsibility to do something, and all these are taking a bite out of the elephant. So I think that's my, sorry.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Sounds good.
Don't want to lose it. So, are there further questions? Commissioner Diaz?
No, I apologize. I left it.
No, that's all right. Commissioner Bruce?
Just to capitalize on the Highland Ponds, because of the proximity to the wastewater treatment center, I do think that it should be analyzed. I do know in the past, it's been kind of touchy. Do we touch it? It's private. It's not. In the past, they have eradicated the lettuce. What is it called? Lettuce? Grass. What is it called?
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Yeah, which
Not a biologist, but.
Yeah, which we weren't required to do, but we have done. And so, and then also that control structure in the Highlands was also deemed to be damaged, and the city, from what I understand, did something or is doing something for that. So in particular, that pond does need to be addressed differently, I feel. That's the one where the fish kill happened when the West wastewater plant, the pipe burst and all the untreated water went into there. So because of the proximity to that pond, I think it's very important to look at that differently. In addition, I'd like to say that these hybrid ponds that don't have documentation, it's gray. It's very gray, and I think that that's probably the biggest decision tonight, is if we want to, if we should be able to provide maintenance for a pond that does not specifically say that we are responsible for maintaining these services.
I'd like to clarify, again, the key term is greater good. The hybrids have been shown to provide some service for the greater good. We can revisit the private ones, right? We can talk about those, but we're talking about the purely public, and we're talking about the hybrids, which our consultants and city staff are saying serve the greater good. Now, whether or not they have an agreement on paper or not, they are serving the greater good, and we can justify spending private or public funds on those ponds. Is that, correct me if clarify.
I don't have a light, so I'd like to ask a question whenever it's appropriate, Mayor.
We'll let Clete go first, and then you can ask.
I just would like just a little clarification, I think maybe clarification for the commission too. When you say hybrid ponds, and those ponds receive drainage from city roads, are you saying that the drainage is in a public easement, platted easement?
The road rights-of-way will typically have drainage structures in them, and those drainage structures will have pipes connected to a pond. That pond is considered a hybrid pond if it's not on city-owned property.
But there's also a legal distinction. If it's not on city-owned property, are we just talking about just infrastructure that's draining in, or have you also looked at whether or not the city has a public dedicated easement to drain on private property?
Yes, are you talking about a
Is that a
drainage easement? The drainage easements are typically over the infrastructure, the pipeline that connects the road, public right-of-way road, to the drainage to the lake track. So there's typically a 12 to 20 foot, potentially 20 foot, but mostly 12 to 15 foot wide easement that the drainage culvert that connects the road to the lake sits within. And that provides you access to the lake all the way to a potential control structure that may be in that lake as well. Does that answer your question?
My question is regarding the private property. I've looked at maybe 75 of these over the years, and they vary across the board. On the hybrid with no recorded maintenance, I think that's what I heard the consultant say. Does that mean that there is no like a general public dedication in a plat,
Yes.
there's none at
None.
all for the private property where the city's roads drain into.
Correct, but the road is public, dedicated to the public or city.
The road is dedicated to the
Yes.
public, but there's no dedication for the private pond,
The pond tract
the pond tract.
is not dedicated to the city or designated as a maintenance obligation of the city, even though it might be fee ownership by the lot owners.
And that's why,
Are
you
there
know,
storm drains that dump into them, though?
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked at a variety of these over the years, and there are some where the drainage for the pipeline and the
Yes.
control structure, there's a
Yes.
clear drainage easement, and in some cases, it drains into private property, but that private property is also subject to the general public easement dedication in a plat.
That's all been researched. Off the top of my head, I couldn't designate which ones of those are there. The point of the hybrid designation is that there is an actual public right-of-way that drains to a lake that is not owned or maintained by the city.
But I'm saying there are situations, and I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds, but I want to get clarity on the definition of hybrid. There are situations where there's a general public dedication for drainage in the plat dedication, while the pond may still be private property, there is this general public dedication. And under those circumstances, the city has the public drainage dedication over the private lands, but doesn't have the maintenance responsibilities unless it legally assumes those maintenance responsibilities over the private land. So this is another shade of complexity to the term hybrid.
But that is, I believe they subdivided those between the one slide showed there's 45 or 40 and 55. The difference in
I'm
what
just
you're
trying to-
talking about.
Okay, that difference was accounted for?
Yes,
Okay, because, okay,
it's a lot.
I know it's a lot.
you know,
It's a lot. We're just trying, we're trying to take a very multifaceted, highly variable condition in our city and trying to simplify it as the best we can, at least to get off the ground running. And so we've done the best we can to say physical drainage connections, like a pipe that connect a road right away to a pond, is a hybrid pond. And then within those groups, which we define, there's those that have the maintenance access or maintenance dedication to the city like you were describing, and those that don't. The only commonality between them is that a public right-of-way, which the city's on the hook for maintaining, has to be able to drain to that pond. That's a hybrid.
In the category of hybrid, does
Yes.
that also include where private property drainage rights and city drainage rights have the same drainage rights over private property?
I think maybe we talk offline about that. I'm not sure I'm following you where you're going with that.
Okay.
And that's sort of where I was coming from, because I think you and I have had some conversations on some of those specific pieces. So I think there's more to, that's what my concern is. I think there's more to those private and hybrid than is specifically focused on here.
Can I make a suggestion, is that staff and our consultants work on this, on the private side of this?
Yeah.
Come back to you at the next meeting, present to you our findings on what we're saying, private, actual recorded easements, recorded maintenance obligations, get a better understanding of that, to focus just on that piece of the pond maintenance so that you feel more comfortable about that. We're fully prepared to take whatever number of ponds you want to list in there. Our consultant can potentially provide what the adjusted rates would be depending on how many ponds you're going to put in there. So if you decide at the second meeting not to include all of the hybrids, or you want to include half the private, we can include those varying number of ponds in the cost to that. I will say on the private side, that's an unknown as to terms of how much it would cost to actually go to those folks and say, are you willing to allow the city to do this? And if so, how much is it going to cost for us to gain that right to do so? whether there's a demand there or not from that private entity, such as the golf course. And how much is that cost? Or whether that gets rolled into the discount, and whether you allow the discount in the rate or not. How much is that discount? If we don't give you the discount, what's the obligation on you to provide maintenance for that? Or what's the obligation on the city to provide maintenance on that, I should say, moving forward? And there's a cost for that. But
If I may, really fast. So can you bring up the slide with the map?
There's a couple maps in there.
The private map one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this pond, if this is the golf course, right? What Commissioner Bruce was talking about before is the small one that's next to the wastewater treatment plant. Prior to the spill, I do believe there was an easement agreement with them because we would pump into that until the spill occurred.
can I address that specifically? Because I think in the new design for the new wastewater treatment plant, part of that storm drainage is going to connect through there, and at that time, we can certainly consider bringing that into the fold.
Sure. Let me add one more thing for you, Clete. And in the past, not the golf course specifically, but the highlands where the playground is and where all that is, from our wastewater plant, I think it was 1 time or 2 times a year, where wind would push things into there, like stuff from the air. We cleaned it or maintained the top of it to keep it healthy-ish here because of our proximity. And I do not know if there's a written agreement to that, but I know we used to do that a couple times a year, several people before you in your position. I don't know if it's a handshake or not, but I know that maintained, because that person used to go out there in a rowboat and clear things just so that the water would keep flowing and whatever debris was coming from that wastewater plant would also clear the pond. So that's just 2 examples of us having prior connection. I don't know if there's an easement there, Mr. Attorney, but that's just an example. And it's not the golf course ponds, those are those 2 other segments. Does that make sense? So as you look at some of the past stuff we've done,
I have. It's all over the map.
Hear you.
That's why we're here today.
Absolutely. But those were health reasons, yeah.
Commissioner Bruce?
I think we need an Excel spreadsheet, really easy to understand, with every single pond and, what is required from the city and what's not. But and maybe we need to make a motion to get something like that done.
It's done.
It's done. Okay, good, perfect. But my other question is, would it make sense to capitalize on Commissioner Baker's suggestion or question regarding point versus non-point source? If there is a pipe, then the hybrid pond would be A-okay, and if there's not a pipe, if it's non-source, just like the flowage is what you were saying, then it would be a different hybrid criteria?
That's already been done.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's already been done. We can bring that back at the next meeting if that's
Great.
what you're
Yeah,
curious about.
so it'd be great to
A
see the
non-
hybrid
A
ponds.
non-physical connection, but
Yes.
it still provides runoff from the road.
Yes.
Right. Versus a pipe.
I'm not sure if that has been done.
And if we have an actual easement to be allowed to work on
Yeah,
that property.
We'll take a look and see
Okay.
what we can do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information on the
Yeah.
spreadsheets. We
And when
didn't
those
want to
spreadsheets are
overwhelm
done,
you
we'd
with
love to
that.
see them.
Yeah, I would absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, whether it has a flow pipe, whether it has an easement, if water is draining in and it's been defined as a hybrid and it serves the greater good, or whether or not it has an easement, whether or not it has that pipe, are we going to step in and, as a community, service that pond? That's the ultimate bottom line. What I don't know that we should necessarily do is go through and say, okay, here's a whole bunch of hybrids and start picking, we're gonna do this one, but we're not gonna do this one. We're gonna do Bob's house, but we're not gonna do Karen's house. We're gonna do, we've set a very clear, well, I know, I use that term loosely, but we've set some definitions. The definitions have been laid out. Today, we're talking about the definitions as they've been put forward, and again, that greater good. So,
What I think we've done tonight is given you a presentation that, to the best of our ability, from a multifaceted approach of this for over the years of handshake deals, et cetera, we've tried to simplify this as best as we can and create a definition that's based on physical data and structural physical reality in the field. There's a pipe connecting a public right-of-way to a pond, regardless if it's city-owned, privately owned, or HOA-owned, it's included in our analysis. The devil's in the details after that. If you give us the go-ahead to go forward, we can go ahead and start working on creating a maintenance operational plan to be able to provide this over the next year, possibly 2. Come back and re-review and say, okay, maybe this pond should be added because X, Y, and Z that we haven't really discovered yet, just because it is so expansive right now. It's a lot of data, 367, 68 ponds in the city.
I just want to say.
Not to disregard the 2-year,
no,
they've been working on that.
I respect and appreciate that you're trying to simplify this as much as possible and give us an overhead view, but unfortunately, we're in a position to answer the taxpayers and people that don't want their fees raised. So we have to ask these kind of questions, and I think it's very important that we delay this vote until we get more answers.
Okay.
And I really appreciate the work you're doing on this because it's very important work. I just want to be able to say, hey, if your bill's going up another $5, this is why, and really understand it, so.
important to note, we are not voting on a rate increase today. We're just giving direction so that they can continue to gather more information so that one day we will have them come back and talk about rates.
Perfect.
We'd like to come back at the next meeting, postpone the rate discussion until
Yes.
we get this ironed out.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll do a deeper dive, a closer scrutiny of the private versus hybrids, show you what the reasoning is behind that, hopefully give you some guidance on where the policy should go, at least as a minimum, so then we can roll that into a rate study meeting that everybody can be at least okay with on the initial upswing, uptick.
If we could get that spreadsheet, that would be incredible.
I believe we can do that before
right.
the next meeting,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Clete. That would be perfect.
So
Manager, is that?
I just do want to clarify. Oh, again, Kevin, were you trying to say something?
No, I'm good. I was talking to the city attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I just want to make sure. So are you saying you're comfortable with us putting off a vote on this item?
Yeah,
Until
The item was the rate.
looking originally to if you go back to December 18th in the presentation, I had included 2 meetings for this.
Yeah.
We were hopeful we could get it done in 1 because we had discovered so much more over the time since December 18th. But certainly, we fully anticipated having 2 meetings for this.
Okay.
Perfect.
So
Thank
I
you so
do
much.
clearly are hearing an interest in that, and you're very comfortable with
Yeah.
it. Consultants are comfortable with it. Thank you for letting us, really guiding us towards a well-informed decision, and hopefully many of our residents that are concerned are listening or watching or certainly are present, and Mr. Gallo and everyone else, so thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you,
There's
everyone.
nothing further. We will move on then to item 501. Gentleman's been waiting very patiently for. Approval of a pre-annexation agreement with Mr. Sheehan to annex approximately 5 acres of land, 4.85 acres of land along Tuscola Road with the Town Center Enclave for future development of a residential subdivision consisting of 11 upscale detached single-family homes and.
Do we need to read the title only?
Yes, a motion.
No.
We need-
It's
no,
just
the
it's a pre-annexation agreement. It's a contract that's being proposed
Okay.
for the proposed voluntary annexation.
Okay, would you like to lead that conversation, maybe for those that are listening, what we're talking about? Or no, don't need to?
No.
So I guess the bottom, then I'll take a little charge of this. Folks, here's the bottom line. There's a piece of land that is in the county, it's right in the heart of our city, but it is not designated as a piece of city property. Many people have looked at this piece of property to put in nursing homes, apartments, all kinds of other things. The gentleman that is currently here would like to put in 11 substantial homes with a very high value, as we're being told. We're talking about like $2 million homes. And that would take that and would remove that from yet maybe a storage unit or anything else. But we are going to be providing some benefit for him to do so. We're going to give him a break on some fees. I ran some math. The city will, if these 11 homes are built and say that their property value is half of what he's saying, and say that their taxable value is at $1 million a home, we will bring in about $29,000 a year to, as a community, to help offset our tax base. And they will be contributing, but we are going to be waiving some fees like we did with, when we tried to annex where the storage unit is. We offered them a bunch of benefits. Hey, come into the city, come into the city. They didn't do it, but we offered it. So many of these things are being offered are the same things that we've offered to other parcels that were enclaves and right in the heart of the city. And we're simply trying to offer some encouragement so that we can get that $29,000 in perpetuity forever and ever. Thanks for hearing me out. Any other input on that?
Just one point of clarification, though. There were a couple of little minor changes to the agreement. The legal description is actually 6.113 acres, 6.13 acres. There's an additional parcel ID that was missed because of 2 deeds that the property owner received. So it's a little bit more land and acreage than stated in the agreement. I just want to state that for the record. If you do approve this, it'll be based on the current legal description of 6.13 acres.
Great. And may I also point out, well, I won't, I'll leave. Yeah. Anything else? Trees are not included in this, these waivers. That's where I was going. Trees are not, in other words, there is no waiver if the trees, and like everybody else in the city, if you're going to be cutting down trees and things, we're going to replace them somewhere else in those funds.
Not seeing anybody's lights, I'll make a
had
motion
mine.
to
I don't know
approve.
what-
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You had a question?
I was just going to say, I looked at his website, and he does incredibly beautiful work. So, but I do have a question about the plot. Are those 2 ponds in the middle of the street, or are they something else?
No, those are landscape items.
Oh, that's what I assumed. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just want to say that Mr. Sheehan and myself and the city attorney have worked on this for months, and it's a pretty standard agreement. He's been great to work with. We're really excited about this project. This would be the first single-family subdivision in the city since Tuscaloosa Crossing, so it's about 2017, 2018. We're excited about it. I think having it within the city limits and seeing that improvement along there, I think will go a long way. And as Commissioner Baker said, certainly the product that Mrs. Sheehan delivers, and we've seen 3 or 4 of them now within the city itself, is just fantastic, and looking forward to bringing that type of value. I know the residential neighbors will certainly see a bump in theirs as well, as you see property values, and we're excited about this project and hope to see the commission approve this tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, good to say that. Actually, you are to be, as the commissioner and the city manager, but some of the most beautiful homes in our community were built by this developer, and pretty much hands down the most beautiful homes. And
I'm ready to knock my house down.
Oh, yeah, right. You're right.
To keep
So,
things moving,
thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve item 501 as presented, and thank you.
Motion's made by the deputy mayor.
I'll second.
And seconded by Commissioner Baker. Christian.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
All right.
Commissioner Diaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Bruce.
No.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Right, okay, and we will move right on to, excuse me, discussion on the City Charter Review Committee, item 502.
You want me to start?
So, yeah, how do we start that? So basically, we have copies, we were each forwarded 2 copies of the last, in 2010, there was a Charter Review Committee, and then in 2000, there was a charter, we saw those. I'll open the floor. Deputy Mayor, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I asked for this to be here. Anyway, so I've asked a couple of the other cities as to how they've done this in the past. Talked to the past Mayor Lacy, and in that, one of the things that was consistent is that we need to, as we put this together, also look at what parts of the charter specifically kind of create a committee and create some boundaries. It's not a free-for-all. So if we all come forward with people that we would like to be part of this charter review committee and also perhaps create a scope of expectations, that would be an idea to put on the table. And then also the other thing, so we don't rush people, it was told to me to expect at least a year of really good work for people to put in the right amount of time to involve the community in this as well. So it's not just one committee that's working. So if we can create some public meetings where people can come in and take a look at what we're doing. Those are some of the ideas that were given to me and presented to me. I know that part of this is some people in Tallahassee are watching us and saying, do it as quickly as possible. But even if we were to do it quickly, it wouldn't get onto this year's ballot anyway. So I think we have a chance to do it right. We've got a long period of time that we can really go back and look and see what needs to be changed. That's where I'm at from.
Christian?
Sure. I just want to note that myself and the city attorney did put at least 5 things specifically for you all to consider in the agenda item. Some of that is mentioned by the deputy mayor. But I think at least the 5 things that we put in here are what we need to create a resolution. I mean, it does include the appointment process, scheduling, stuff like that. But if we want to take it item by item, that's just an option as well. Or line by line. Just an option.
Page 3
Can I
or
ask
4.
a question real fast? I think I had asked you about this, Christian, and I brought it up today in my meeting with the city manager. I know a lot of things that are in the charter will get input from, the charter review committee would get input from staff members on areas that might be able to be improved to help their specific departments succeed. However, I think when it comes to the way our commission and governance is done, that we might need outside, maybe somebody from the Florida League of Cities or that has broad knowledge of the state to assist our committee members would be a good idea, because they don't have the experience to really truly understand a lot of the ins and outs of how cities govern. So is that something that is included in this that we can make sure we have on that committee as some kind of counsel, I guess?
Well, I guess, I mean, one of the considerations is, I mean, who you want to facilitate the process. I mean, back in 2000, it was a totally outside, I guess, firm or something that was hired by the city that facilitated the process. In 2010, I think it was Anthony with some technical assistance from staff. I mean, maybe it's a hybrid, I don't know. I know, we go off of usually the starting point, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't gone through it, but usually the starting point, you take the model city charter put out by the National League of Cities, right? And then go from there.
I mean, that was previous direction from the commission, I think, 1 year. I mean, 1 year, the city commission retained Florida Institute of Government.
Yeah, right.
Out of UCF, and they came in to facilitate.
Right.
And then the second go around, 10 years later, they were like, they made me the facilitator with the city clerk. One was a complete update, and they used the model city charter as a background, and that was the directive that the commission gave the committee. And then I think it was the second one, 10 years later, they were actually more specific and gave while they were guided by the model city charter, they were given specific provisions of the charter to focus in on and give a specific recommendation. So they had a broad review, but the Charter Review Committee was asked to give a specific recommendation on certain provisions of the charter. Again, I think what the clerk is advising, and myself, I mean, in the past, the City Commission has adopted a resolution which lays out clear direction for the committee, so they're not just wandering aimlessly, and I think maybe that's what the former mayor was alluding to. Right. Because I think he served on one of the committees, and he actually did a pretty admirable job. He might have been the chair. So the focus was given by the commission up front.
Yeah, I think where I'm going with this is I don't necessarily think the commission should give that kind of guidance. I think this should come from a very neutral point of view but with a firm understanding of what kind of governments are common in Florida and what changes governments throughout Florida have made to their own charters. And so that's why I suggested maybe the Florida League of Cities as someone that could come in and, or at least see if they have some kind of presentation that might be offered to teach this committee of what government is in Florida, especially since this is a bit rushed and being brought to us by some people trying to change our charter to a specific type of government. So I guess I just want it to be as neutral as possible without our interference.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So what you just said, I want it to be as neutral as possible without our interference, and I appreciate that, yet. Could we get that starting point from that consultant and sort of go through it a little bit?
Absolutely, I think,
So
yeah.
it would actually start with us, to get that consultant towards us,
Mhm.
to be neutral first, before it gets to the committee that we create? Because you
I
said,
think that's,
'cause
yeah,
you-
like,
you-
we
you
would
said-
choose we would kind of say, we need an external professional that is an expert in this arena.
Right.
Yeah, we would
And
choose
they
that.
would come to us and say, okay, so here's the outline, here's what's looking at, this is what we think you should narrow it down to. And
I don't
we
think
work
they
with
should
that.
come to us. I think they should go to the committee.
Well, if I can
The committee
jump in
comes
the
to
middle
us.
of this one. So I guess what I'm hearing is that the dais tonight make a decision to direct staff to find us a consultant to and let us make a decision on the consultant, whether it's a university or the League of Cities or someone else, right? Let's get, I think that's the big question. Let's get them to
And adopt all
provide
the
us.
other stuff.
And then we can do the other things later. Right now, what we want is to get the ball rolling, start organizing, find the people who can
Yes.
guide that, and listen to what the professionals tell us is the best method or what's been proven throughout the state, so that we can have this balanced, well, without being influenced, all those things. But we'll have to make a decision.
I think it's, the organizational, like, all of the other things are going to we have to do all of those as well. I don't think having an expert on just that portion of committee's education it should hold us up from doing all of the other things Christian has outlined for us. Of how do we choose the committee, how many people we all pick, like getting the ball rolling on it. I think we just need to add that one extra layer of the charter review process shall be as follows, and one of those things is having an analyst or an expert
Consultant,
added,
yeah.
a consultant added.
Employment of technical team, as is number 3.
Yes, exactly.
And I think maybe getting quotes from League of Cities or the Florida Institute of Government with UCF or any others would be welcome, just to have someone to guide us or guide the committee on best practices and recommendations. You can do this, or you can do that. You can't do this.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Baker, are you asking us to sort of do this and step aside, let them work with the committee, and then bring it to us?
I mean, isn't that what a charter review committee is? Is a
I'm just
committee that, just like any other committee, they do their job and bring it to us. We don't interfere with the
That's-
committee. Is that not how the
City
committees
manager, you good
typically
with
work?
that? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking for clarification.
Right, so yeah, the previous two met, they composed a final report, brought that to the commission has final action on whatever makes it to the ballot.
Yeah.
And if we have any suggestions, we would present that to a committee member of the committee.
Well,
Yeah, I was curious how that
I
would
guess,
work.
I
Would
guess
that be
that would be
appropriate?
the question about number 3. Are there specific charter provisions which you as the commission want them to evaluate that you could lay out in the resolution?
Would
and will
that be like, for instance, currently our charter doesn't have anything listed that we're required to have a charter review. We would like you to look at that. not necessarily influencing them to say 5 years or 10 years, or don't put it in there, but just say, hey, can you look at what other cities do for charter review timelines? I'm
To
just.
me, that makes sense. To me, that makes sense. I don't know. I'm looking to Anthony, but
Yeah,
to
Anthony.
me, I mean, that makes sense.
I just, since this is my first time doing this, I want to make sure
That
we
you
do
could
it
put some-
correctly.
Yeah, you're saying, you're not necessarily listing
I'm not saying, hey,
specific
charter
provision of the
review
charter.
committee, I want a 5-year, I want it in our charter doing 5 years charter review. But maybe we go to them and say, these are some areas that, you know, the city
Yeah,
populace would like,
right.
you know, and so charter review or
It's a,
timeline.
it would be a broad direction,
Yeah.
right? It's not, it's not telling them, telling the committee a certain way. It would be whether the city charter should contain a provision
Yeah.
that establishes a charter review committee that,
Yeah.
you know, considers amendments or
Yeah.
updates to the charter, right? And then, you know,
So maybe
they
as a
would go
body,
back
we
and then
kind of
explore.
decide on a handful of those things that is included in when it's formed, I guess.
Yeah,
As kind of like their duties that we write for all of the other committees. Like, you know, these are a handful of areas we would like you to focus on, but you're welcome to look at other areas too.
Correct.
Maybe some recommendations, like put it in writing on the checkbook, you know, what it needs to be, such amount.
The charter is not going to go into that.
Okay.
That's a very high level. It's it's really the blueprint and roadmap for the city. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, typically, you know, committees are given a charge.
Yeah.
And recognizing what their charge and role is. And I think those feedback could go back to whoever is designated as the liaison, to get that information back as well.
So that goes to my question that was directed at you, Commissioner Baker, was if two paths, right? We hire this liaison, and this liaison works with the committee, we stay out of it. To me, then we stay out of it.
Okay.
If we go the other way, we hire the committee, and we have influence, I think that goes that's two different
Right. I think maybe you're
approaches.
misunderstanding what, and that's fine. Thanks
Right.
for asking for clarification. So, like, when we set up all of our committees, Parks and Rec Committee, we discussed, we overhauled.
Yep.
Christian wrote a bio, essentially, of what their job on that is. We would write that job of overview the committee with the help of this analyst, these staff members, and these are the areas of our charter, like, almost like
Yeah.
headings?
Yeah, these are the areas of our charter that we want you to look at.
Yes, and stay out of it after that. Yeah, that's, yeah,
That would be perfect.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Can I interrupt?
So I mean and sorry, Mayor, just real quick. So I think what you're talking about is pretty much what the 2010 resolution does pretty well. I mean, there's Section 2 Charter Committee responsibilities, you know. You're going to conduct a comprehensive review. You're going to make recommendations on whether it's consistent with, in this case, the Model City Charter. About committee evaluate and make recommendations on, listed out 4 or 5 specific provisions, and then says, but also, you know, look at the charter, you know.
Yeah.
And do, if you see something else. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. But what were you going to say, Mayor?
So a clarification, and maybe I'm just got that because this is the first time I've seen it. So as part of what was emailed to me as the agenda for this meeting, and what I just pulled up on the website, as part of the agenda for the meeting, there's no cover page. But when I go into our computer here, as we're sitting here on the dais, and I go to view documents, there's something called regular agenda item 502, and a very good update and explanation. These 2 documents that are attached to the agenda are just the 2000-27 from the year 2000, how they did it. And then there's the 2010 dash whatever it is, that example. But I think what's really good and what is getting in the meat, and I apologize, I'm not sure how I did, it might just be my lack of technical ability, but that cover page is very, very good and really does lay out things. And I don't know how I missed that.
It's in the big, giant, full packet, and I missed it. I didn't look at it either, so.
I went through, even now, I just kept trying to find it, and I couldn't find it. Will you do me a favor? Will you just email that to me?
And Commissioner Baker, so then we're looking at the 2010 charter review with the parameters as necessary from us and a consultant.
Yes, yeah, so basically a kind of a hybrid of those two, So basically go with a lot of what the 2010 one says and just make sure that we have a government analyst of some sort included.
Do we want it to be Anthony or an outside source?
I think outside, just because Anthony doesn't work for every city out there to know. I mean, that would be a lot of work for him to see every charter out there.
City manager, you good with that?
Yeah, not showing the full extent, but, whether or not we'd have to look at a bid or.
Yeah, we would have to bid it and see what's out there.
So there'll be some time.
If it comes back that it's outrageous, then we'll come back to Anthony.
I mean, maybe,
I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, get into it, but again, I'm just looking at 2010. So section 3 listed city attorney as the project facilitator. So you're saying change that, and then section 4 was other technical resources. So do you still want staff?
I think that's where they would be.
City manager,
yeah.
clerk, attorney, whoever to serve as technical advisors
I think
to the committee?
I think
or
it
no?
might, maybe Anthony still does the oversight.
Okay.
Just like any other committee, but, so this person would be a technical advisor to the governance portion of the charter.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I'd like to make one.
Project facilitator.
Yes,
Yeah,
project facilitator.
and that worked, the time the city did that worked very well.
Oh, yeah, go to the buttons.
Yeah.
Need to close this
Screen and go back. All right, if we go in order, then Commissioner Baker.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Okay, all right, then Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple points, and Commissioner Baker makes a good point when she says the neutrality. My bigger concern with some of the points that you brought up and kind of some of the discussion I've heard, the mayor referred to professionals and consultants and stuff in the same kind of sentence. I remind everyone that it's the professionals and consultants that get us into the messes that our country is in many cases, $38 trillion in debt. We may not want to have professionals tell us what to do. However, the Florida League of Cities was brought up. Now, the model charter would be a national
National
legal
League of
city situation.
Yep.
But a model charter is going to be more of an outline. It's not, it's not a final product. It's not a work product per se. It's a guideline, no different than in any major international or national organization, and uniform rules and what have you. My bigger concern with having, for example, Florida League of Cities that was mentioned, the Florida League of Cities is a lobbyist. That's what they are by definition. They lobby on behalf of the city, not on behalf of taxpayers. That's not what their role is. Their role is to keep government alive and funded. Therefore, their charter, their advice, their technical advice, if you will, is going to be, what their own agenda is, and they're a lobbying organization. So I would rather trust the people to sit on that committee. If anything, when we were saying neutrality and expertise and what have you, I mean, I would even say that the bias, and this wouldn't even be in writing here, it would be just as a consideration amongst us as a body, that the bias be folks that have even served up here. I could speak for District 1 that, I can rattle off multiple former commissioners, starting from, Commissioner Benton, Commissioner Hovey, that are basically, subject matter experts on things like this that, would bring a level of technical expertise to a charter and even have some of the historical content of what we've done in the past versus having a lobbying organization come in. That's what we have a city attorney for. That's what we have a clerk for. That's what we have a city manager for. I mean, these folks are on the city payroll, if you will, to work for us, but also for the taxpayers versus a lobbying organization. That would be my only concern. But I agree with you on the neutrality, because right now, this process has not been anything but neutral.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what side anybody's on, it's just not been neutral. It's not been transparent. And I think that the one thing that the city does need throughout this entire process is a ridiculous amount of transparency. And I mean, the last thing I would want is a lobbyist coming in here and wanting to push their agenda in, because it's not like if their win-loss record in Tallahassee is very good either. So, I mean.
Yeah, my goal in thinking about Florida League of Cities was just that they have access to all of the cities and know what their charters are. But maybe, I mean, it could be as simple as just giving them a a digital class that says, these are the forms of government available in Florida,
Right.
you know, like, and just so they understand what, because a lot of people don't even understand what a strong mayor versus a weak mayor is, because they think it's just words, strong and weak, like you don't have a backbone, or you're super, you know, like, and that's not what
Sure.
strong and weak mayor means.
No, of course not, yeah.
So, yeah.
But I agree with you on the neutrality. That is paramount in this conversation. And realistically, for the city attorney, I guess my part of my question would be, what level of advocacy would members of the dais be able to have with that board? Because technically, wouldn't we be able to advocate as citizens to that board coming up and speaking without violating, since we are in public, even though we're going to vote on it?
I mean, okay, so, no, technically, I mean, the commission could. In the past, though, the commission stayed neutral once they appointed the committee, and the committee just did its work. I know my recollection is some of the commissioners sat in and may have listened in, but they were not advocating at all. They were waiting for the committee to present their recommendation to the commission, and then the commission, of course, has the final say when it considers the report, what, if anything, gets proposed to the voters, because the commission would have to adopt an ordinance to propose any charter amendment that the city commission wants to initiate. The answer to your question is, I guess technically the commissioners could go to the committee and speak. In the past, the commission stayed relatively neutral and just waited for the committee to report to the commission.
And I appreciate that, and the reason I was asking also, not only the legality of it, because obviously it's in public, is that it does not escape me that I sit in the seat of the district that was, under fire for, near or at least attempted abolition based on GIS tables. And I remind everybody that my district is the original historical core of the city, which is the village of North Orlando. So the reality is that I think that the southwest Winter Springs and the historic core of North Orlando and the village of North Orlando, the original city, I've been asked throughout the entire process, again, because it was so not transparent, what was really going on. And I think that, there would be an advocacy role there, and at least, just making it public as well.
Okay, if I can real quick, just I have a real need to, and Commissioner Diaz, very respectfully, I need to maybe point out some significant disagreements here. The Florida League of Cities, I would agree, is a lobbyist organization. That is one thing that they're challenged with. They are also the #1 educators of elected officials, municipal elected officials. We are all by law mandated to go through them for our ethics training, and I believe you've also gone to not only ethics training, but 3 other trained newly elected officials, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different educational processes that they are challenged with defending our community in Tallahassee and other municipalities. And they, but their equal balance is, their equal part is, they provide us with services and education. We get insurance programs through them. We can get help when, and I'll be honest with you, somewhere where we missed it, when we lost our city manager, instead of going with an acting city manager, we should have gone to them. They could have helped us get an acting city manager from that. There's a lot of other services. I don't necessarily believe that the representation is, it doesn't match my reality and my experience working with the Florida League of Cities. I believe them to be an incredible resource, and I cannot imagine where we would be without the education that they have provided elected officials and the many, many other services that they provide. Now, having said that, the second part is that they're not to sit on the committee. They're supposed to educate and help guide. If we want someone, if you believe that, you specifically, I believe you mentioned Jean Hovey, a former commissioner, that they should be the one direct. No, let's have suggestion is let some outside organization who specializes in education guide those, if you believe Jean Hovey, for example, honorable woman, served our community for a long time, she's great. Make her your appointment to the committee. That's where it works. That's where your voice, that's where she gets involved. We'll all be tasked with finding really good, educated people who understand the task at hand and who can then listen to these professionals. And that's why they are. We need consultants. I can't tell you how to build a wastewater treatment plant. I can't tell you how to run a police department. That's not who we are. We're residents. We need professionals to explain it. I just want to kind of go clear on what the league's role is here and kind of come to their defense, again, respectfully. I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I acknowledge what you're saying. I just see it a little differently. With that.
And Mr. Mayor, I respect that, and thank you for respectfully, explaining that. The reality, though, still, even with your entire explanation, the reality is that when you call them consultants and you compare them then to wastewater engineers, people with professional engineering degrees that are building an actual tangible product versus a lobbying organization, just because that lobbying organization might also have educational programs and might also offer other services, which they are paid to do, that doesn't mean that they are the end-all be-all. At the end of the day, they are a lobbyist. That means that they are going to come in with an agenda of what they want their agenda to look like for the city. And I can tell you from reading pretty much every document they send out, because obviously I've been getting it now since November of last year, not only are they a lobbying arm, it's very clear that they are, and everything that I receive from them is what they're lobbying for unsuccessfully in Tallahassee, because their win-loss record, again, I remind you, is not very good. But number two, it's typically against taxpayers. I find myself looking at some of their positions and being like, whoa, that is very good that you support government and the city and the bureaucracies and all the layers of, tax problems that we have. However, they never seem to have a solution that lessens the size of government, lessens the scope of government, lowers taxes, or makes people more free. That's at this point pretty clear from just their lobbying efforts and, again, what their win-loss record is in Tallahassee.
Okay, thanks. I really would like to move on. I would like to point out, this is a legal group. They are attorneys.
Okay.
They're lawyers and they represent us. They have a duty to, we are the client. They have a duty to represent us. I understand what their record is and all those other things, whatever, but yeah, they've got a tough fight representing us. Winter Springs does go through it. Okay.
Okay, I think we're just a little off track.
Yep.
So I think.
Mark?
We have many buttons hit. and you're
We
jumping
just
in.
need to
Yeah, as I did.
say that we're going to select somebody. So maybe we ask a whole bunch of people for a proposal and a cost. And if we don't like their proposal, then we shoot it down at that point.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Mark Unick.
Mark?
Okay.
Okay.
So touching on to what you said, Mayor, and the question is that I have is when do we start reaching out to residents for the committee, and how many residents in each district are we looking at?
Do we want to address that now, or do we want to hear? Okay.
Sure, that's number one
Yeah, I was
on the
gonna say,
list.
you want
Okay.
Christian to just go through the
Does
list?
the city commission agree with the previously proposed appointment process based on the existing districting commission process, which would give each commissioner one appointment who has to live in their district and the mayor two?
Yes. Yes.
So there's a motion to, or some direction. Let's just say you
I
made a
say yes to
motion.
that.
That's a one. Is there a second on that
Do
idea?
you want to vote on that, or do you want to,
And then we can move forward?
Christian, do you need a vote on that, or just a consensus?
This is something that has
Just
to come
the-
back to
yeah,
the
just the
commission, so I think
consensus to include in the
looking for
resolution.
consensus.
Yeah.
Right, and then we'll go to drafting of a resolution
Right,
Okay.
when it's ready, when
Is
it's
the
ready.
mayor too, just so there's an odd number still?
correct.
Okay.
So,
And
Can
do
we-
we have to agree, do we vote on each member that we are bringing to the table, or does each person get that person by choice?
No, so right, so just like, well, I guess
Whatever,
districting, we
yay
put
or
it
nay.
all together on a slate and kind of up or down it, but I mean, I guess we could do it either way. We could do it like a regular appointment.
Yeah.
And each person can go, I nominate
Mhm.
so-and-so, I, or name,
Yeah.
down the line.
Okay.
So, one more question onto that. Can they be on a board already, or should they not be on a board already?
I mean, if we're following the districting commission process, they can be on a board already.
It's an ad hoc committee.
And it's an ad hoc committee.
So
it
they,
doesn't
so
matter.
you, so you- they can serve on multiple boards as an ad hoc committee member?
Okay, so, do we simply do a show of hands? Are we okay moving forward with that?
I'm good with that.
I'm saying all heads shaking yes? Okay,
Yes.
so that is the direction, we're gonna go with that. At least I'm seeing 4.
So we're going to start putting feelers out to see.
Everybody, right, everybody find one, right, okay.
Can I?
Yeah,
play with
keep going.
something?
Yeah.
Commissioner Baker, I'm kind of jumping ahead. I'm just putting this together, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, all right? Part 1, project facilitator. We ask the city manager to seek out a project facilitator. Maybe a few people to kind of decide, do we put it out to bid or not?
I think we said project facilitator would still be Anthony,
Well,
and
bear
the
with me.
technical team would just include one of this analyst.
No, it's the other way around.
Other way around.
Oh, is that the other way around? Okay.
Well, historically.
In my
it's the other
notes.
way.
Historically, that's the way it's been. I mean, there's been a neutral facilitator. The role of the facilitator is to deal with all the process management and bringing the committee through the whole process, also, establishing neutral guidance and some technical support, and then ensuring that all committee members have a voice, the public transparency. They serve to run the process, and then there may be,
And the most recent one, that was you, right?
I help facilitate, yes.
Yeah, so
That whole
that's-
process and guided the committee through the process based on the direction given by the commission.
Yeah, and the technical aspect of just the expert would only be for the government portion, just like finance would be the technical advisor for
Right.
financial parts of the charter.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah,
Depending on
so-
the city manager gave technical guidance, the city attorney, city clerk.
Right.
Just
So I would
like we
assume
give
that
you
we would want
guide-
you to be the
technical.
facilitator, or somebody from your firm.
But then, if we move him to the facilitator, then we have him as, we would have no reason for project coordinator as well. Do you want him as a facilitator? or
I'm so
technical?
confused to know.
So, if we go with an outside firm, then Anthony and his firm move to the technical, I've combined.
There's
2000
technical resource committee underneath project coordinator.
Yes, and Anthony would move to the technical resource committee, yes. Anthony would move into that category. Section 3 from there would be whoever the facilitator is.
Employment from technical team is not the same as technical resource committee?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're,
Oh, I see where.
Yeah, so-
She's getting,
Commissioner Baker's talking about having Anthony facilitate and then getting somebody from the league who I guess is available, like the clerk, like the manager, to be a technical resource. Deputy Mayor Resnick is talking about making an outside person be the facilitator, and then the attorney, the manager, the clerk go to that next section where the manager and clerk already are in the 2010 one that says technical resource committee.
Correct.
there was one year where I actually, if you read the resolution, in 2010, I actually served in, I guess I wore multiple hats. Not only was I facilitating the process, but I was providing legal guidance to the committee to the extent it was necessary. I mean, I didn't make decisions, I didn't advocate for any decisions, but I answered questions as my capacity as
And I
the
think what you're saying,
city
correct me
attorney.
if I'm
Well,
wrong,
maybe,
Commissioner Baker.
okay, I'm looking at this organizational chart.
Yeah.
So we've got mayor and commission, and then under that, there's a little sidebar that has project liaison, city
That's
manager,
2000
city attorney.
Right, that's the 2001.
So if you go to the 2010 one, or.
They don't
then
have
maybe
one.
that-
There isn't one.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, that's because in the section, they named the attorney as the facilitator and then put a technical.
Can we use a different word since there's not facilitator on this 2001?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I can
Let me look
compare
at
apples
that.
to
Project
apples.
coordinator.
Liaison,
Let me look at.
Project liaison.
project liaison.
Okay.
So if we have an outside project liaison, top of the pyramid,
Yeah, project coordinator, yeah, liaison.
Yeah, in what I was thinking was that
I see.
that person wouldn't exist, that it would be city manager or city attorney sitting over there, just like they always do during committee meetings. I don't know what the project coordinator is different from project liaison, but then it goes down to technical resource committee and charter review advisory committee. And that's where the technical resource committee was where I was assuming someone would come in and advise the committee on government styles.
so that's why I like the 2010 write-up a lot better. If you look at the 2010 write-up, it gets a little bit more specific on each person's position. Section 3 talked about the city attorney as the project facilitator.
It's in the body of the text.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have it charted.
Yeah.
So, hey, how about this? Let's ignore these
Do we
charts
have a
and things
whiteboard?
and
I'm good
just
with
say what
whiteboards.
we want. Just ignore what's written down there. Let's just ignore that, because the terms and the titles are getting
Right.
confusing and they're side by side. Let's just say, we're gonna bring it, I'm not
Outside.
saying this, but
An outside resource to guide the committee that's up here
For a year.
for the
Or
time
whatever it
they need.
takes.
The staff necessary would be the city manager, the city attorney, city clerk, and the directors who would help as needed for this group of people.
right, so they would have legal advice there, ready to guide them. They'd have any other sources, but there would be someone facilitating that.
But this
meeting.
outside person, just to be clear, is at the city's expense. So this is an additional cost to the city.
Sure.
Yes.
And
We
that's,
want it done
that
right.
was one reason why I was like, we just need somebody to come in here and explain government day.
Because, I mean, one thing is somebody coming in and doing a PowerPoint,
Yes.
all right, and saying, hey, this is what this type of, government is, and this is what that type of government is, this is what dissolution of the government is, this is what, 17 people up here would be like the city of Chicago or something like that. But we already have a city attorney on retainer, we already have a city manager, we already have a clerk, they have very competent staff, and realistically, consultant comes up here and wastes our time and spins our wheels for a year, we still have to pay him, and we got nothing out of it. Or we get some agenda from lobbyists or anybody else. Or flip side, the city manager is hired and fired at the will of the commission. So therefore, we have then, as elected representatives, we're not giving up our constitutional power to delegate and legislate on what we see fit based on a constitutional republic, which is what we are doing. We are the ones putting the vote in place. We have a city attorney that's on retainer, so we know what those costs can be as, the legal work goes up, but that's controlled within our own budget. We have a city clerk. All of them have ample experience in government and oversight and what this is going to take, and they have a reason to be transparent because they're here. They're our community versus an outside person, probably from Tallahassee, coming in to lobby what their version is. And we already know what Tallahassee could do, left alone to their own devices. So why don't we keep it in-house to us and not bring in outside people when we have a way to do it? And the city attorney is always shown to be quite neutral in, helping us through legal questions.
I think we're getting sidetracked. The decision to be made is, are we going to allow the city staff to come back to us with choices? They can say, keep it in-house and follow what Commissioner Diaz is saying. They can say, here's the League of Cities, they do it, and here's the National League of Cities. We're just simply giving direction. Bring us back choices and options. At that point, we make a decision. We're not making the decision right now of how this is going, and who it is.
I thought we were making that
We're
decision.
making a decision that's going to be the League of Cities or something?
No, we were
we're just
making the
saying,
decision on
who's
how
it gonna be?
how the charter review
Yeah.
committee is going to be organized.
Yeah,
All right,
we're voting on something.
So it was Commissioner Baker who asked for something neutral. The only way to do something neutral is for an outside source to come in.
I just don't think it's by a facilitator. I think we have the capabilities of managing a committee just like we manage all of our committees. We just need an outside neutral person to explain what government is on the day that they're looking at the forms of government in their meetings.
So then repeat the 2010 Charter Review Committee language, adapt it for today, and add that one
Yes,
requirement.
as a technical expert, essentially.
I will tell you, look, and it's okay if everybody disagrees, but this might be, I think that, whatever. As much as I really respect our city manager and the city staff, they have a dog in this fight. They have a very strong, like, how that, right? The power that the city manager has or that the mayor has, they have a very big decision. That, they've got a lot at play in this discussion. We're not going to bring in somebody else? Okay.
Well, if
I
we
mean,
bring
I'll
in
go with it,
somebody
but
else, I don't
thought
think it
we
needs-
wanted neutral. And if we're going to put it back in city staff who have, look, I'm not saying they have an agenda. I trust them. I think we're really blessed to have the people we have, including Mr. Sweet and Anthony and Christian. We are really blessed, but this is going to directly affect them. It could affect their income. It can affect their roles and what their jobs are. Or, okay,
But the
I mean,
difference is,
I'll
Mr.
go with, you guys are going to vote on it.
I
but-
agree with you 100% with what you just said. You're absolutely right. They do have a dog in the fight. But you know what the difference is? It's a devil you know versus devil you don't know. And when you start bringing lobbyists in, they start bringing in their lobbyist interests, and then they start going in other directions. And lobbyists can also be lobbied because they're out to the highest bidder. And once they have a certain agenda, and if Tallahassee's going in one direction, the county's going in another direction, political winds are going in another direction, that person has a serious stake in what that outcome is going to be because that's how they get paid. So the city manager, the city clerk, you know, all of the folks that we talked about, city attorney, they're all within us, so we know what we're getting. And if we have a problem with it and we need to course correct it, it's a lot easier to course correct when we already have a mechanism in place versus all of a sudden the consultant's going to say, oh, great, you want to course correct? No problem, I still get my fee. Now go get another one. Isn't that the argument you had with the whole city manager search situation when we went through like 2 or 3 searches and 4 companies got paid or what have you? I mean, it's the same argument. And that's what we're going to get with these consultants. I would say keep it in-house, keep it within the city. Commissioner Baker's absolutely right. It should be neutral. But one thing is a PowerPoint presentation on what government looks like and, you know, kind of the Schoolhouse Rock type situation. And another thing is bringing in a band of lobbyists, you know, with the dark suits, white shirts, red ties, and Brooks Brothers briefcases to tell us how to run our city. We've already had that. We just went through that.
Okay, can we just, I think we're going round and round and round, and thank you, Commissioner.
All right,
How about somebody make basically effectively a motion, and we're only going to call it a motion, it doesn't, I know that, so that we can say, yes, we're going to move forward, or then we kind of don't get an agreement, we tweak it, let's move forward.
All right, so I'm going to I'm going to try to present something that people can make sense of. So the 2010 Charter Review Committee language, with us as a group coming back at the next meeting and taking a look at Section 2.
2?
Section 2. Because that is the direction, 2010, that is the direction that the committee gave to
What
that committee.
what their job
And-
is.
Correct. So if we adopt this, just with us coming back, let's go through our charter and take a look at this section. What do we each want to bring for a charter review? Because this is very narrow in scope. Okay? It only has 5 things. Now, it does say in here that the committee can review other things, but the scope is only 5 things.
And then figure out the rest of it the next time around?
Well, so if we take a look at this, then you've got Section 3, the city attorney, you've got Section 4, so
Technical
everybody else
resources,
falls into
yeah.
their positions, and we can add into this, Anthony, as you're looking at it, we can add into this a provision that we would bring in an outside consultant to start the process for the committee once they're set.
I think that's a great idea.
Everybody good with that?
I guess the only thing that, this is minor, but what if there is something else that we really, and we limit it only to those 5, but there's some other.
No, I just said we're going to come back and, that's what we're going to
We'll
edit.
revisit. Okay.
We edit, in the next
Okay.
commission meeting, we're each, that's what our Section 2, we're going to edit it. That's the only section we'll change.
Is that what you're looking for from us tonight, Christian?
Yes.
Okay, let's move forward with that.
Yeah, one last thing, I'm gonna say, if we bring somebody in, or even Anthony, later on, like, we agree to this, but then later, as they're working their way through it, they find something, there's no mechanism to go
Yes,
revisit that?
so there's a section
Okay,
3 in
right.
here that says they are free to propose any amendments to the city charter that are not addressed in subparagraph 2 and 3.
Thank you, I see it, thank you, I see that line, thank you.
It's just that if,
Great. Sounds good.
Sound good, everybody?
Yes. At least with me.
I mean, I thought
I don't speak
it
for
was
everyone.
well-structured in 2010.
Yeah.
And
It looks
gave-
like it's structured very well.
But,
Okay.
I mean, there's questions all through it.
Those were the commissions.
Those are the commission's questions in this charter review committee?
Right.
Yeah, they gave them broad, comprehensive review direction, but they also had specific questions that they identified ahead of
Five
time
specific sections.
that they wanted they wanted to be sure that they got a recommendation on their questions. But that was not the limitation of the 2010 Charter Review Committee.
Those were the things that were,
Yeah,
Requirements.
those are the
Identified
specific
as
things
very
that were
important.
on the mind of the commission at the time that they wanted the committee to definitely give a formal recommendation on, but the committee was not restricted in any way whatsoever on their recommendations. They were just asked to also be guided by the 8th edition of the Model City Charter, which is now the 9th edition. That's the current edition.
Right.
We would
would,
change
The
that.
only thing I would add to that, and if I can
that's
just,
what I was
is,
just going to ask.
oh, sorry, is to make sure that also a section that we would have public input, like the 2001, we do not have public input here. I don't know if it needs to go into this. You know how the first one had 4 public meetings to get feedback? I think it would be nice to include the public in this. I don't-
They were included in the last process, so I'm
Right,
assuming
they're
we
gonna
would
be- right,
just,
they're going to be public meetings.
Meeting, so.
they're
they
all
would have
public meetings,
input.
and I would assume they would probably
Okay.
follow the same format.
My question is, would it
that
be
the
okay
commission does.
to, at this point, go ahead and add that charter review timelines and maybe the process for charter change recommendations coming to the dais also be included in this list of responsibilities?
Section B.
You're talking about the final report date, like when it's due?
Maybe I just missed it. Let me read this really fast.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That we need to have them look at including a provision that says we have to do a charter review at a certain timeline.
I think you can include that. If somebody might bring back a specific section they want looked at, but I think in that same part, you can say, maybe it's
Subsection.
not, or there's a part of the chart, maybe there is one, charter amendments might be on there and say, look at adding a specific review.
The-
Okay.
or something.
Right, there is a provision in the Model City Charter about a periodic charter review committee, but I think what's on the mind of the commissioner is that that's something that at least Commissioner Baker would definitely want the committee to give a recommendation on.
Instead of periodic, I'd like it to say 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever they
Just give them the
choose. but-
direction to
Put that in
look
section
at that.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah, just include it in
yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, should we go ahead and add that in to section 2 now?
the statute, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, now, my thought, as I was presenting it, was that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would not be coming back. We would be putting in our own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the next meeting.
Okay.
So it gives us a chance to step away, decide what we each want, and then we talk through each of those.
Okay.
We're going to bring maybe, I don't know, a
We'll bring-
mostly complete ordinance with a
Resolution.
blank that's what I mean, resolution.
But
with
on
a-
that point, is that something that you want us to just put that in there, just at least in the draft for you to consider?
Yeah.
Right, so, and then any other items that you bring up at the next meeting?
Okay.
And still maintain how we're picking the people by district, right?
When are we appointing
The districting
that?
committee.
When are we appointing members to it?
Do it next meeting.
We can do next meeting if you're ready. If you need more time, just let everybody.
I'd probably do
Would have to
maybe
be
the
after,
following
Probably
meeting.
wait till March. at
yeah,
least.
after the resolution has been finalized.
Leave the next meeting to just finalize the resolution.
Is there going to be an application online?
It'll be,
The same
it'll be the
application.
same as
Same.
any other one.
And maybe if I can, so that, okay, we've got some great direction here. We're moving.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
all the buttons are lit. Can I clear them
I'm-
all?
Not me,
Yes.
not me.
Oh.
Take me off.
Commissioner Crusoe?
I was just going to say, I agree with Commissioner Diaz that we should keep it in-house.
Okay. I'm up for whatever you all decide. I was just making points.
We made that
I think we need
Commissioner
to-
Diaz, your button is lit. Would you like to add anything?
Nope, I apologize.
No, you're good. No, everybody's was.
All right, do we need to vote, or we just gave
I think we
direction?
have direction.
Okay.
I would like to maybe make one last point. Remember that we are appointing these folks to make decisions. The last time they made several recommendations, the commission then decided which recommendations they were going to take and not. They accepted some, they declined others. That final decision is made up here, not by these folks, and because some of them were kind of hotly contested, and there was some split votes and some things like that. Having read the very detailed minutes, there was a little bit of controversies, and when it got here, it changed a little bit. Okay? So, with that, let's move on. Okay.
Boards and committees.
Yes, boards and committees.
I have a question. Christian, I can only, on my phone, I can't see, it cuts off after their name on most people, to see if we've had additional applicants for code and compliance. Last I saw, there was only one.
There is only one.
Okay. I'd like to wait a little bit longer, because I'd like to reach out to that person.
There's only one, yeah.
So,
So
okay.
I'll just say.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I think we have a couple chaplain ones that came in.
We did get 2 additional applications for chaplain.
I would love to nominate Pastor Rivera to be a chaplain for us.
I'll second that.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, then we have 4 here, and that's it. Yep, that passes. And there was a second application? There's no limit on the number of chaplains, right?
No, there isn't.
Yeah. And I believe that the other one was, if someone would like, if they're interested, Kyle Stewart would like to be reappointed. Anyone like to make that motion? No.
I guess the most, I'm not playing favorites here. The most pressing vacancies, Board of Trustees, 3 vacancies still. Seat 1, 2, and 5, all of them are open at this point to the full commission, if anybody has a nomination for any of those seats.
Did all 3 of
For 5, we have 1 person interested in reappointment, Mr. Santoro. So if you want to reappoint him, you just have to make a motion to do so.
Is that the one that I discussed with you?
So there's, the gentleman who served previously.
Yes.
Mr. Santoro is interested in.
Yes.
So if you'd like to
Reappoint.
make a motion to reappoint him.
Make a motion to reappoint him.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, that leaves 2 vacancies on that one. 1 for seat 1 and 1 for seat 2. I know the person from seat 1, I'm just telling you, was interested in being reappointed or put in an application for reappointment, but again, that's up to you and the commission, so. And seat 2 was a resignation, so.
We need.
There's, I think 2, so there would be 2 applications left for Board of Trustees, so. Mr. Fareed, who serves in or served on seat 1, and then Mr. Traver, I think, who was a new, but anyway, that's up to you all.
I think I saw that it was rescheduled.
Board of Trustees was rescheduled.
Do we have a new date?
Not yet.
Okay.
Because we were waiting to have,
Was it rescheduled because there's not going to be quorum? Because
right,
there's not enough?
that there was enough numbers, so we were
Okay.
waiting to have at least 3 members.
Okay. I'll be ready by next meeting to appoint
Okay.
someone.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at March for the next meeting.
Okay.
I do know that, so. Okay, that's fine.
So you're asking about Kyle Stewart for his position,
Well, I'll be honest with you, I was very curious.
If I may.
knew that he was there.
for me. So I like Kyle, but here's my but part, and we can all figure this out. And I did once before say something, is the prayer at the beginning of our meetings is non-denominational. Our current gentleman who's sitting here always keeps it that way. Yet, almost every time Kyle comes up here, I get calls or emails, right? And it's not, if he can just understand that last part is what people get offended by. Now, like I say, I like him. I think he's a good person. I think
Same.
he's definitely out for the community in the best interests. There are just people who get upset by that last part. Can we talk to him, city manager? I can call him, you can call him and just say, hey,
Seems to me you've already done that, though.
I've done it. I don't mind doing it again. I would like him to be part of here. It's just that there are some people who get frustrated by that or upset by that, and it's sort of, what's the balance?
Well, that's no different than the people who get upset about how others want to use their property. And then they come in and they say, oh, you can't use your property even though it's legal that way. It's almost like saying, you know, you're asking him to deny his religion and his belief in
I'm asking him
his
to follow the
God.
rules. I'm asking him to follow the rules that we've put in place that say that prayer is non-denominational.
Well, non-denominational, that's fine, but non-denominational is a denomination within a religion. That is his religion. If someone comes in of any other religion, in many religions, their appearance alone would be a statement of, under your logic right now, of denominationality or
So we were very
denominationalism.
specific in how we wrote this, and that is what has upset the people that reached out to me.
I understand your concern, or just like, just the anecdotal sideline, is that I spoke with Rabbi Capro, who was a military chaplain. If I'm not mistaken, he was the president of the National Board of Chaplains. He has extensive careers, retired military chaplain. The guideline is, so let's be very specific so everyone knows what we're talking about, that Mr. Stewart used the phrase at the end, in Jesus' name we pray. We asked him, and by all chaplain national boards and things, my understanding is that he should use the term, in Jesus' name I pray. It's my understanding. So in other words, it's his finishing line. It follows his belief. It allows him to, it's public, right? For him, it's freedom of speech, and he can say it, but he's not speaking for us that way. For anyone who is sensitive to that, that way he ends it with I pray, not we pray as an organization, and he followed that. But that's okay. I understand don't want to throw sand in this one. I just want to, there's some things, I hear everybody's
I'll
points
give
of
him a
view.
call,
I
and I'll
really
talk
do.
to him.
Yeah,
And
I
then
understand.
If you can give us till
I
next
do.
meeting, then I'll discuss
I
it with
do.
him.
I hear all sides on this one, but, okay.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
No, sir.
New business? Hey, I have one for you, if you'd mind if I go first, just because I was there today. Hope helps. I was really interested in if we want to know if we'd like to do a team building, work in the pantry, help some families. I believe it's a 3-hour commitment as a team. We go in and we help load carts and load some cars and help people in need get some groceries. We get a tour of their facilities and an explanation of the great work that they do. They are available Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Those are the pickup days. Is there interest from this dais to come together and help some families in need?
Happy to.
After after April 15th?
That's fair. I mean, no, that's a very honest thing.
I'd
You
say
know,
May
that because-
15th, but, you know, I'm trying to pull back, kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
in Jesus' name I pray.
Yeah. So, I mean, does that help you?
Yeah,
I mean, if
you're
that's
right.
something that helps, yeah, okay. So I will speak with her again today. I would really like to move forward in doing that. I understand your concerns, and we wouldn't want to leave anybody out. I think the whole idea is to do it and to do it together and maybe, send a message. And you know what? Maybe it's good for us to just be together and do something. So, no shop talk. Okay, any other new business?
Nothing.
No, seeing none.
I have one,
Yes,
and
okay.
I pushed my button.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there it is.
So, there's a parcel of land that was purchased several years ago, right by the dog park and the pickleball facility that's currently not being utilized. And when I drove by during the Highlands game, I thought, what a wonderful spot that would have been for visitors to be able to utilize that property. And so I was just wondering if it's the will of the commission to start looking into opportunities for that property, how we can use it.
Sure, have the staff come back and maybe explain what their vision is and what they were thinking when it was I mean, I was here when it was purchased, but, it was one of those, it was a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a great deal on it. Anthony was instrumental in that, and we bought 2 parcels, and, we actively used one. I know the other one was, we have used it for access stuff, whatever.
Yeah, access as well would be phenomenal. So just would like to explore opportunities on that. In addition, I have another one regarding the soccer community of Winter Springs and how they've requested that the lower fields of Central Winds have temporary or permanent lighting, just so they can get another hour or 2 of practice during the times of daylight saving times where it's an issue. And I just wanted to bring that forward to see if it's the will of the commission to see if we can fund that in the 2026 budget. The lights that are up currently at the amphitheater were relatively inexpensive for $50,000, and I think that they would be satisfactory.
Wow.
Staff does not agree that they would be enough light, but I think it would. They just want some temporary lights, and we don't have that because that's in the police inventory. So I just wanted to bring that up once more and see if there's anything that we can do as far as funding those lights for the lower fields of Central Winds.
Brian,
Commissioner
and
Bruce.
staff are working on that.
Is that a private
Yeah.
organization?
Is that the short lights you're talking about that you see at the events that we have? I think Brian had a good logical reason why we can't use those lights. Come on, Brian.
We're exploring the ones that you're referencing, looking at an additional height on those and some additional lighting. Staff's recommendation wasn't that, they weren't good enough. It certainly weren't good enough for actual tournament play and field play, but we have started looking at exploring what those cost estimates would be to look at doing it. It'd probably be more like practice lighting.
Yes.
And we are actively doing that. We have some in-house costs. The installation of those, we did the majority of that work in-house with the exception of an electrician. So we were able to put those in and install those at a pretty good price. And we're looking at options. I know Brian has spoken with David Beer and a couple of other community
Yes.
folks that are involved and explained them. They seem to be on board and letting them know. The discussion wasn't about FY26. It was about trying to budget for it in FY27. But, we could continue to have that conversation. But just to
Okay.
let you know, we are actively looking at that. We've kind of cost estimated out what that would look like and are moving that forward.
Wonderful. We give the baseball is amazingly lit, and the pickleball is phenomenally lit, but then there's this whole of one group of the soccer players that are trying to practice that can't really practice much because of the daylight savings time. So thank you for that.
Is that a pass-through cost to the organizations that are using that?
No.
Currently, no. There has been some conversations with some third-party groups, but those have not moved forward. So it would have to be, if we were to move forward and implement it, it would be part of our budgeting. Yeah,
So we're subsidizing a private organization.
that would be at our city facilities, but the end users and agrees, yeah, that could be a different conversation.
One more thing of new business. In Tuscaloosa, there are some trees that I've spoken to staff about that have been removed, and I wanted to see if those needed to be replaced, but I guess they don't, and the stumps are still there, and it came up during the TLB trustee meeting that I watched online in full, and I just wanted to see if there was anything that we can do. It's on Northern Way, real close to Sam Smith Park. There's a private stormwater pond, and I believe 3 or 4 oaks, I believe, were removed. Maybe they were diseased or damaged, and so they don't have to replace them, but these stumps are still there, and I guess it's not in our code that we require them to remove it. So I was just wondering if there's anything we can do to replant the trees or remove the stumps or something.
Yeah, I'm aware of that situation. Those trees weren't healthy trees. They needed to come down. We're working with the HOA there to look at having those stumps removed. I think initially they had anticipated just kind of leaving them, but we've since have had follow-up discussions, and we're working on getting those removed.
Wonderful. And should we update our code to reference that for the future for stumps?
We could look at that.
Okay. Because initially, we thought that it was already in it, and we thought, okay, we'll just implement that. And then I guess we went back, looked at the language, and said it actually wasn't. So, okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Caruso.
Thank you. Just one thing, City Manager, can you provide us an update on the property on 434 going towards 1792, I guess the assisted living? Some kind of update on that?
Yeah, I actually spoke with Commissioner Baker about that today. We're looking at getting a staff update. I was going to speak with Carolyn if she's had any conversation with those folks. They, as you know, the last one, they approved the extension. It was a 14-month or so extension approval. It's been at this stage, a couple of months now. They have secured their financing. They have engaged a new engineering firm, and I had anticipated that we would already start to see some movement. So I had told Commissioner Baker today that I would have a conversation with staff and see if there's been any update on our end, because I haven't heard anything specifically as to where that stands. So we'll get you an update, and we can circulate that before our next meeting, so you have it in email.
Okay, if there's no other new business, we'll move on to reports.
City Manager.
Just a few updates other than my bi-weekly update. Arbor Day tree giveaway sign-up opens this Friday. Also, we've completed about 457 of the 1,200 hydrants that have been inspected. Fire hydrants are moving forward, and I think they're now moving into the Tuscaloosa area, so that's progressing and moving along nicely. Congratulations to our finance department, led by Holly Queen, our finance director, and the whole finance team. We received notice from the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, of our Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in the Financial Reporting for the last year's ACIFR for 2024. I think they have identified 25 that have been given to date that I've seen. So kudos to them. It just shows our commitment with transparency and moving those financial reports soon. Hopefully we'll be moving into the budget award at some point soon. That's really a goal of mine. But, you know, that's a big undertaking. But so congratulations to them for working on that and getting that. I think the last time we did receive that was 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 2021 maybe. So, yeah, kudos to them and all of their efforts to make that happen. Timing with the heavy discussion on the charter review. On Friday, I received an email from senior advisor with the Florida City County Managers Association to recognize the city of Winter Springs for its 45 years as a council manager form of government. They have requested to appear at our next commission meeting to do a very brief presentation at the beginning, and also take an opportunity to present and have a photo opportunity with the commission and mayor. So if folks, I would be prepared for a photo opportunity. And again, 45 years as a city manager form of government, and kind of ties in nicely with all of the discussions we've been having lately. So that's all I have.
Anthony.
No report.
I'm passing. Commissioner Baker.
I have a lot tonight. So I wanted, a lot of this came from my CalNo meeting this past week. So one, if anybody is interested in running for a position in the county, there are 2 soil and water positions open. You must have agricultural significance experience. They specifically state that doesn't mean you grow a tomato plant in your backyard. So more significant than that. The Seminole County Public Schools got their graduation rate, which is a national rate, and it's 94.4%. So they have an A rating at every single one of their schools, so they are super excited about that. Also, there was a presentation done by the county community health department, and this one is very near and dear to my heart. My brother died 11 years ago from a fentanyl overdose, and so did his wife the same day. And my sister has been an active addict for over 20 years. Narcan and naloxone, it costs between $25 and $40 if you buy it at CVS. However, throughout the county, there are dozens of locations where you can pick it up for free. They are looking for additional locations that might be interested in that, and one in particular is churches that they're looking for to sign up. But I'm proud that Winter Springs is involved in that program, and we had these boxes to save lives even at the Highland Games. So that was pretty amazing to hear. One thing that is absolutely incredible that I love to see is this year we saw a 49% decrease in overdose incidents countywide and a 48% decrease in deaths. So that's just incredible. Let's see, there was something else. Oh, police. We have one of our cars that's wrapped for the lethal dose of fentanyl, 1 pill can kill. They have additional money. If we would like any more cars to be wrapped at the police department for free, that is all of this is done through settlement money on a national level. So from the opioid settlements from these doctors that were over prescribing, and there's a lot of money out there, and we don't pay for any of this. So this isn't taxpayer dollars that is paying for these Narcan, and so utilize as much as we can. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Earlier this end of last month, when we missed the last meeting, several of us went up to Tallahassee. It's an honor to represent the city. I know several of us met with our representatives that were up there, and I had a chance to meet with quite a few others as well, talk to them about our financial situation. There was a lot of positive news towards you, City Manager, and Holly, and everything for what you've done on the financial side of things. I presented to several people our budget, and they were happy to see where we're at. Also conversations about our wastewater plants, their biggest thing up there. I know they're far away, but was just when are they coming out of the ground? So that's going to be soon. It was good to say that. And also talks about appropriations. And so we do have good things going up where I believe several years ago, people in Tallahassee looked down upon us. Now they're looking at us in a better light. So I can appreciate that. From up there, I know several of us went up there, so thank you for the work you did as well. And to the citizens, I can tell you, at least from my side of watching everybody, we worked hard for you. This weekend is supposed to be good weather, and it's Valentine's Day, so everybody who's out there that's celebrating, please enjoy. And to those of you who can, find your way to a Winter Springs restaurant with your partner. That's it. What's that?
For the ones that are left.
For the ones that are left.
For the ones that
Yeah, we have a few. Let's get people to them. Anyway.
Commissioner Caruso.
No report.
Commissioner Diaz.
No report.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes, thank you. So just a couple
I
things.
skipped
Oh,
Oh, that's okay.
who'd you skip?
We'll get back to
That's okay.
No, go. No, you go.
She wants
Ladies
to
first. She calls on you.
You go.
Oh, you want to finish? You want to wrap up the evening? Is that, you want to
Yes.
be the headliner
She
at
gave
the
you
end?
permission. Go,
Okay.
Go. We want to get out of here.
Go quick.
I don't need the help.
All right. Action Church opened on Sunday. I had the honor of going to services with Commissioner Bruce and her husband. And it really nice, wonderful. Those folks are really everywhere. Father-daughter dance this weekend was amazing. I had fun. That was really, really great to see so many dads in there. Man, what a great, and this year for the first time we added another day. We had 2 nights. Wow, it was phenomenal. Great job. Congratulations to the staff. While we're congratulating staff, that finance award is no joke. thank you for letting us know. I knew that it was pending, didn't know that we had gotten it. Look, folks, the reality is we did struggle for a couple of years. We lost, really, the city manager, finance director, we lost a lot of our key people. We're coming back. Thank you, sir. Thank you to Holly. I know that she's not here, but that's a tremendous amount of work. I can't tell you how many times I've been in here at 9 o'clock at night or late at night working, or come in on a Saturday or on a Sunday and Holly's in here working. That stuff, getting that national recognition for that excellence in financial reporting and really having our books tight, it's remarkable. She's brought it back. I look forward to happening again this year. We've really, folks, we've turned a page. I said it a year ago. We've turned a page. Moving on, Narcan. I'd like to listen. Just acknowledge what you've said. I personally have administered Narcan to 3 different people that had stopped breathing. I run restaurants and bars. I came up upon a car accident one day, and the guy was in the driver's seat, what appeared to be a minor accident. He wasn't breathing. I had Narcan, had access to it. And on all 3 occasions gave them multiple doses before the paramedics showed up and got them breathing again. It's not a joke. It really is serious. It's out there. It's available. It's safe. You can take it. I saw somebody do it once. If you're not addicted and you're not using it, you grab it and just do it. It's harmless. It does no damage. I wouldn't recommend it.
Works like Flonase.
But it's just like Flonase, right? It's a squirt, but it can save a life. So I commend your
And
comments.
if they're dead, they can't ever have an opportunity to get sober. So.
Yes. American Legion on Saturday had a wonderful event, and they're working on a fundraiser to bring a monument to the county courthouse in recognition of the 4 chaplains that died together in World War II, handing away their life jackets to other shipmates after they were torpedoed. Really a moving story, really was there. I know that there's a movie out about it from, an old black and white movie. It really talks to the power of faith. That there was a rabbi, a Catholic priest, and then 2 other Christian non-denominational folks that were on that ship and who were recognized, and it does speak to that service that they provide to our country, to our city, and I love those, and thank you, Bob, for being here. I think it says a lot. Community Legal Services also held an event on Saturday recognizing 60 years of free legal services for those that are in need. You do not need to be broke. You don't need to look. You can have a problem with with a lease or a tenant kind of a thing. You can be going through a breakup. You can be going through all kinds of your home is being foreclosed on. You're already in a bad place. You're financially hurting. You need legal services. It's tremendous. They're second to none, and the quality of help. They have a lot of in-house counsel, but then attorneys with their own specialties throughout the region volunteer pro bono time to pick up that caseload if you are in need. It really is. Community Legal Services of Central Florida is remarkable. Please put that in the back of your head. If you have a friend that's going through something, if that's something you can share, I think it really is remarkable. Again, I think we talked about the going to Tallahassee and the important work we all that met with different members of our Florida delegation and many others, state senators, our House of Representatives. Those folks are doing really important work, and we need to frankly lobby for Winter Springs. And then lastly, we haven't been here together since Scottish Highland Games.
Right.
What an incredible event. Yep. Saturday was spectacular. I know the police chief isn't here. I know there's an officer in the back. They were all hands on deck. Our Parks and Rec team, city manager, everyone else, really the entire team that pulled together. That is the single largest event in Seminole County every year. And boy, they hit it out of the park. It was wonderful. And with that, I'm done. Now, Commissioner.
No, I think it's,
No, you heard about it.
Right?
okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
so just want to thank Michael Christ, who has stepped up and gotten the sand volleyball courts ready to go so that the Winter Springs High School sand volleyball team can utilize that property instead of going all the way to Red Bug. So thank you so much. That's been wonderful. They're so thankful. In addition, I incurred a really bad structurally damaged sidewalk on 434 by Tuscaloosa Crossings, by their stormwater pond. Stormwater structure has been compromised. FDOT has been alerted, and there is now a cone there, but definitely needed somebody to contact DOT and follow up on that. We got a light from Duke Energy at Panama Road installed. Residents are very, very happy. They've been trying for 5 years to get lights. It's been very, very dark in that area, so they're very, very, very happy. So thank you so much for the staff that helped with that. Action Church, not only are they now coming to Winter Springs and doing their Sunday services at Choices and Learning, Pastor Eddie, who is the chaplain for the police and also appointed tonight to be our chaplain as well. He is the pastor there, and not only are they doing services at Choices and Learning, which was exceptional, but they also have leased the zoo and some other offices above the former general public for their offices and also for teen nights and Bible studies. So I think it's going to be great for that hub. In addition, Acai Republic is opening, and as you know, Tijuana Flats and the dry cleaner have gone. But I've been talking to some of the business owners to see what the city could possibly do to promote more economic development in that area and getting things like maybe more events, maybe using Blumberg Boulevard for a dog parade, different suggestions coming in that are interesting. And then the most important thing that I'm just so excited about is there's a farmer's market in Winter Springs this Saturday on the 15th at Trotwood in the big pavilion.
Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
Saturday's the
Sunday, the 15th.
At Trotwood.
It's at the Pam Carroll Pavilion, and they are so excited, and there are lots of vendors that are going to be coming, and so please show up so that we can make this a successful event. I'm very excited for the city. This is something that we need. We have so much rural farmers around us, and to be able to bring that to the community is anticipated. So thank you so much, and that's my report.
Actually, I'm going to ask you to repeat that. And is that a city-run thing or somebody, an outside
They got a
vendor?
permit.
Permitted.
Commissioner Bruce, is there going to be a dunk tank for the chief?
No.
I'm sorry, can you,
Sunday at Trotwood.
Sunday at Trotwood, what time?
Give me a minute, I'll look.
Okay, that's right. Hey, while you look that up, I'm going to just, I promise, a short mulligan. Pledge Central Florida. If you've not heard about it, I'd like to bring it back at another time and talk about it. It's simply, they're united by one idea. Central Florida is stronger when we treat each other with dignity and respect, especially when we disagree. Elected officials throughout Central Florida are signing this pledge. It's non-denominational, nonpartisan, and it's yet another way of bringing elected officials together and maybe setting examples and maybe a little reminder. And so I'll come back to you in another date to maybe ask if you'll allow them to come in and do a presentation when we've got the schedule able to do it. And let us each walk away with something to read and think about and consider. I have signed the pledge, and I will, personally, I'll continue to do my part to treat anyone in Central Florida, particularly in Winter Springs, with dignity and respect, and think twice, before I speak, maybe. Okay, with that being done, did you find it?
I did. Sunday, the 15th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., they will have produce, plants, honeys, jams, cheese, breads, bakeries, hummus, crafters, shopping vendors, and more. And it's going to be the first and third Sunday at Trotwood Park.
So excited.
Oh, it's going to be ongoing.
Yes.
I am beyond excited.
Okay, great. Anything else? I closed my book, so that was the end of that. So we'll open the floor to public input. Anyone that would like to address us? Sir. Good evening, and just as you state your name and whether you are a resident or not.
Sure. My name is Ted Fox. I'm a resident on Ermine Avenue in Winter Springs. You're probably aware of me. I've been emailing you and many of the commissioners for 3 years. I was hoping that we would have some more traction tonight, and that was my reason for coming along to the meeting. I've been through a lot of different staff lies, documented lies that I've shared on email chains. false promises from some commissioners, from city staff. I won't embarrass them by naming them, but you all have the emails on record. And it's frustrating to see that the city team was not prepared to be able to give you documents in time, and we hired a consultant and you're not able to make a decision tonight. So I think that needs to be acknowledged by the city, and I think the commissioners need to hold city leadership accountable to that, because we've been waiting a long time for some movement with regards to that. Cade touched on it. I think he's a lot more diplomatic than I was, but it's unacceptable to have people come to this meeting tonight on the think that you were going to move forward after 3 years of dealing with this and to still have no movement. It's not on. It's not good enough. It's not why we elected. Mayor, you spoke about a lot of people being elected on this stormwater, and that's true. It was. And there was a lot of promises made, and they're not being kept. I would question the need, if we have city engineers on our payroll, as to why we had to get a consultant and pay to have those ponds counted and to verify that they were their legal status. I don't know why the city couldn't have done that with the staff and the expertise that they have in-house. So is there any kind of idea as to how much that report costed? There's some additional property tax paid for those people living on some of those ponds that you're speaking to. So where does that go and fit into the equation on that? So I'd ask that question as well. And then I think Anthony kind of raised a question with regards to the pond in our question, which is Lake Willa. It is deeded and there is a maintenance requirement in those documents. I think the question has always been that the language is grey, and it states that it would be maintained to an acceptable standard. So the question has always been, what does that acceptable standard mean? And if the city has maintained a pond since the late 70s, early 80s to a certain level, and now they've decided to backtrack from that. I think if you have a question of what's an acceptable standard, I think the precedent of almost 50 years ties back into that. I think we've always said as residents that we would be willing to pay, so the $4.50, we'll pay it. Just make a decision. Just stop sitting on this stuff. You know, you're elected to make decisions. I know it's hard. People don't want to hear about increases, but if that's what it costs, do it. There's enough information there tonight. We spent an hour talking about a city charter and committees. We could have spent the same time figuring this out and made a decision tonight. And just move forward with it. Just do it. We're not a HOA. We can't pass a law or make our neighbours pay for this. We rely on the city to put these in place. So let's just move forward and stop messing around. And another month, and you're not going to make a decision next month. It's clear. There's going to be more questions. There's going to be pushed back again and again and again. My last point is that I don't have faith in the city to manage the vendor if we pass this. Solitude is not managed professionally by the city. I've documented times when they have failed to show up. I was told by Cleat that they're supposed to be monthly. They're supposed to do shoreline maintenance. They've never walked or sprayed the pond shoreline, which they're paid for. He came to my home in October and told me the weir would be on it in February. I've waited 3 years, Mayor, so.
I'm sorry.
November's
Excuse me.
coming too,
No,
buddy.
you're done. You're done. Thank you. No,
Thank you.
I will give you time if we're, come on now. Your time, I was just trying to be polite, sir. Just trying to be polite and just warn you. I'm not trying to, that's what I do. That's okay. Never mind. Okay. Anyone else that would like to address the commission?
Evening again, Art Gallo, Winter Springs resident. I just wanted to clarify, and I apologize, I probably wasn't clear earlier. But our HOA takes very seriously what we're required to maintain, and we've been doing it for many, many years. So the fact that, I mentioned how much money we spend, which is significant over those 5 years, wasn't to complain. It was to say, provide evidence that, hey, we're doing something and we are using that credit and we need that credit. But we maintain all our common areas and do all our required maintenance, both inside our gates and outside our gates. And we actually will mow and irrigate and fertilize right up to the curb. So now we've been doing this for years, and we started to ask questions. Well, why are we doing what we're doing? So that's what brought me to come to the city and say, where's the line and what is required by documentation? And we can't find it. And when I read the plan and my whole thing on that, all those red things on the display where we have 5 ponds, they're all red. That means the city thinks they're private. Yet when I go and I walk the street and our board members walk the street, we seem to be maintaining things that may not belong to us because we've always done it that way. And I know we've got at least one, probably more, gutters right there on Vista Willa that drain into our pond. That would meet the requirement for a public service, but we're paying all of that. So it's not complaining. We do what we have to do as a board to maintain what we're supposed to maintain. We're just trying to figure out what is the requirement. And so we can, if we can save some money, like you, we want to save some money. So I hope I can clear that up. We are not complaining. We're just trying to state what we think we have to do, and we're trying to get it in writing. So thank you.
Very fair. Thank you. Anyone else that would like to take this final opportunity, madam?
Hello, Linda Freeburn. I'm a resident. I didn't want to let this opportunity go by without mentioning the 7-Eleven. I just can't believe that this is dragging on like this. There has got to be something that can be done. It's
in
right
appeals
next
right
to
now.
it.
It's legally in appeals. We can't do anything yet right now.
Let you be heard. Let's
I
let
mean,
you be heard.
he at least should be getting a fine. And I assume that the fine would go to the property owner, which stinks for him, but maybe it moves things forward. And if a fine had been imposed as soon as a violation was found, we would have been done with this already. So, yeah, appeals, appeal after appeal after appeal, in and out of court, everybody in and out of court. And it looks awful. I understand the restaurant has a problem too. There's a rumor that the restaurant next to it is not doing so well either. So.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Mr. Fox, and just if you allow me to apologize, and just so that you understand, there's a 3-minute time limit. We give extra time, but with every resident and anyone, I gently try to, and I do this with everyone, I do it kind of so that I'm not interrupting. That was what that intent was. But again, I apologize. We'll move on. I will allow you a few extra seconds like we usually do, but I'll try to maybe find a different way to hint that maybe isn't found offensive. At any rate, if there's no further input, we are adjourned. Thanks.